Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You realize that.
There is a sign-up sheet out there, so anybody wants to speak, they can sign up on the sign-up sheet out front there if you haven't signed up. Okay, you get the approval of the minutes if there's any additional corrections.
I so move.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Financial report?
So move.
Second.
Okay, all right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. Have an amendment there, Steve?
Yes, one budget amendment, budget amendment number 2014-002, is to recognize the forfeiture of $1,500 of Steve's funds and the funding of undercover police operations.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept budget amendment 2014-002?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, this is a public hearing on the draft zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, and the zoning map. We'll start with Mr. Chris Rogers, who will present a summary of the review process for the Elkton zoning ordinance, the Elkton zoning map, the Elkton zoning subdivision regulations. And Mr. Rogers is a consultant to the Elkton Planning Commission and the Town Planning Department staff to update the Elkton zoning ordinance, zoning maps, and subdivisions. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners,
You can pull that to you, sir.
my name is Chris Rogers, as the mayor mentioned. I'm a planning consultant for URS. We've been assisting the town planning office and the planning commission in the preparation of the draft zoning ordinance, the draft zoning map, and the draft subdivision regulations that you have in front of you. So the purpose of your public hearing tonight is to take comment on those three items. I'm going to make a brief introduction, describe the process that we've been through to get here, and briefly go over the nature of the three documents that you have in front of you. So the three documents that you have in front of you is the results of many months of hearings, or of meetings and reviews and drafts between URS, the town staff, and the planning commission. The zoning ordinance, the nature of the zoning ordinance is that it creates various land use zones within the town, and it requires different development standards for development within each one of those zones. These three documents are the cornerstone of the regulations that implement the...
Pull it closer. Pull it closer to you. So.
Can everybody hear that better?
There you go.
So, these three documents are the implementation tools for your 2010 comprehensive plan. While the comprehensive plan is the cornerstone of your land use policy within the town of Elkton, these three documents that I have in front of you are the day-to-day regulations. These are the regulations that the staff use on a day-to-day basis to determine what can be built where. So the way we got here is that URS had reviewed the existing zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and we went through each chapter, chapter by chapter, and we made recommendations and made revisions and worked with staff to come to a comfort level where we could bring those individual chapters to the planning commission. So we would bring, say chapter 1 of your zoning to the planning commission. We would get comments from the planning commission and go back and make revisions. After many months of going over each chapter with the planning commission, we finally got to the end, and the planning commission reviewed these whole documents at their hearing last week. The nature of the zoning ordinance, as I was stating before, is that it breaks down the town into 11 base zoning districts and provides regulations for development within each one of those zones. So it dictates the permitted uses that are permitted in each one of those zones. It dictates the type of landscaping, how many parking spaces, the setbacks, the height of the buildings, the environmental standards, setbacks from streams and forests. So that is the nature of the zoning ordinance. That's the core of the zoning ordinance. In addition to those sort of development regulations and the permitted uses that it dictates, the zoning ordinance also has a lot of administrative chapters that dictates the administrative procedures for implementing the zoning ordinance. So for example, the zoning ordinance is the document that establishes the planning commission. It establishes the rules and the procedures that the planning commission operates by. It's the document that establishes the Board of Appeals, and it's the special exception procedure and the variance procedure. So in addition to those development standards, it also has a lot of administrative procedures. It has some miscellaneous chapters which I won't bore you with, but it also includes things including signs and non-conforming uses in the amendment procedure. One thing that we wanted to bring to your attention that is what we would consider a significant difference between this zoning ordinance, this draft zoning ordinance, and the current zoning ordinance is the creation of the town center district. The intent of the town center district is based on recommendations that were made in your comprehensive plan and recommendations that were made in a transit-oriented development study that was prepared for the town in 2010. So the town center district more or less replaces the old C1 in what we would consider here the downtown, the central business district. And the intent of the TC district, the town center, is to create a more pedestrian-friendly environment, to require buildings to be built to the street frontage. It requires certain basic fundamental architectural guidelines to make the buildings more acceptable to the pedestrian scale. It promotes connectivity of streets and sidewalks. So we wanted to bring to your attention that that's a new zone in the zoning ordinance that doesn't exist today. Another item that we wanted to bring to your attention, which I think you're aware of, is that the chapter on planned unit developments is not being considered tonight, but that has been withdrawn from tonight's discussion for further discussion and further work by staff.
So essentially, with this town center district, I guess everything evolves around that point.
It is one of the 11 zones in the town, but it is the zone that dominates the downtown. So I was going to go over the zoning map in general. Also, in front of you is the subdivision regulations. It's not nearly as thick, but it's just as important as the zoning ordinance in implementing your comprehensive plan. The zoning ordinance, the subdivision regulations deals primarily with the residential subdivision of land. It dictates the development design standards that new neighborhood and developments need to be. It requires the bonding. It has the bonding procedures for public works agreements for new residential development, and it dictates the residential subdivision process. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. The last thing on your agenda tonight for the public hearing is consideration of the zoning map. So I think you're going to, there are several individual requests that are on the agenda for your consideration. But Gene Minner and I wanted to bring to your attention that the draft map that staff presented to the Planning Commission had 4 staff recommendations. So in addition to those staff recommendations that you'll be considering tonight, you have other individual requests, but we wanted to bring to your attention that staff made certain fundamental changes to the draft map that was considered by the Planning Commission. And I guess those 4 changes are can be broken down into 4 general areas. First is that, like I mentioned, we created a new town center district. So we proposed to rezone much of the downtown to that TC. So that area that you see in purple, for the most part, that's currently zoned C1. While we're keeping the C1 district, which is the sort of low-intensity commercial district, we've created that new town center district, and staff has recommended that that area in purple be rezoned to town center. So that's one fundamental area that's different than on your zoning map that currently exists.
So the purple is C1, and with your proposal, as you said earlier, that town center zone is going to be C1 as well?
No, sir.
Oh, go ahead. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, that area in purple, for the most part, is zoned C1 now.
Right.
But it's being proposed to be rezoned to town center district.
Right. All right, go ahead.
Another area that staff has recommended changes is the area that Gene's pointing to right now, which is to the east of the county courthouse, between High Street and Main Street. That whole block has about 3 or 4 different zones in it right now. And what staff is recommending is that area be all rezoned to RO, residential office. So we think that it cleans up a lot of inconsistencies. There's some commercial district in there. There's some R3 multifamily residential. So we wanted to make that block sort of a uniform development standard. So we're recommending that all be changed to RO. Another area that staff has recommended to be changed is the area. You're gonna go to Whisper Tree?
I'm trying to get over there. Okay, let's go with the,
It's a little trip through town, so.
yeah, no. It was working earlier. Then we could do
The
townhouse.
townhouses. So another very fundamental and simple change that staff is recommending is that there are several areas around town that are clearly non-conforming in that there's some existing use there that would not be permitted under the current zoning. So for the most part, we're recommending changing several existing townhouse developments from R2 to R3. They're built out, they're existing lots, they're existing townhouses, and we're just making them consistent with the zoning that would permit them.
This is, Washington Woods.
Speak up in the mic, please, Jeannie, please.
Washington Woods, East Village Road, and Delancey Village.
Thank you.
So the last area, and it includes several parcels that staff is recommending be rezoned, is the area down by the town wastewater treatment plant and the county detention facility.
Way out of the way.
I know, can't do it. There we
There we
go.
go. So just to orient you, that square in the middle, parcel 2004, is the county detention center. So right now, you don't have the existing maps in front of you, but that is a hodgepodge of zoning that is somewhat inconsistent with the existing uses that exist. So we're recommending several zoning changes to that area that would make the uses consistent with the zoning ordinance. Generally, the wastewater treatment plant, the area comprised of the wastewater treatment plant, is being proposed to be zoned to resource protection, which is sort of consistent with public uses. The detention center is proposed to be zoned from R3 to C2. And there's property generally on the corner of Landing Lane and Route 40 that we're recommending be rezoned from, I believe, R2 to C2.
Business industrial,
Business industrial to
C2.
C2. So you can see that that area has several parcels in it, and that's the area, the dark outline are those parcels that our staff is recommending to be rezoned. So what we wanted to get across to you is that those are the changes that staff came out of the chute with, that those were general inconsistencies with the zoning map, and we recommended to the Planning Commission that they accept our recommendations regarding those zoning changes. One thing I wanted to also mention, Gene wanted to make sure that I mentioned, is that the zoning ordinance also includes the provisions for your historic overlay zone. So, and the zoning map also maps the area that is designated as historic overlay zone. In the historic district, as in other overlay zones, there are additional regulations on top of the basic regulations of the zoning ordinance. So we wanted to show you that the proposed historic district is as recommended in your comprehensive plan. So your comprehensive plan of 2010 recommended, slight revisions to your historic district, and these zoning maps reflect that.
Sorry.
So, you're gonna
Sorry.
Sorry, it's probably the only one you can do.
This is the historic district.
So that cross-hatched area, that hatched area is the historic district as proposed in the zoning map that you have in front of you.
It's at the top of your map. It's in the top left corner of that map.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. If you have any questions or comments,
Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Okay, notice of this public hearing was published in the Cecil Whig on July 26th and August the 2nd, 2013. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept comments and recommendations from the public regarding proposed amendments to the Elkton zoning ordinance, the Elkton zoning map, and the Elkton subdivision regulations. A public hearing regarding the proposed amendments was held in the Elkton Planning Commission on Monday, August the 12th. This public hearing was addresses those proposed amendments. However, additional amendments or changes may be discussed at this public hearing. And following this public hearing, depending on the comments and the recommendations presented. First part of this was the hearing was to be specified on the Elkton zoning ordinance. The second part will be specified the Elkton zoning map and written request proposed changes to the map. And the third part will be specified to the Elkton subdivisions. Just please confine your comments to those particular items that you want to discuss. When you come up to the podium or come up to the speaker, please state your name and your address. But we do have one thing. Jeannie, we did have an update regarding the one property from RMR. Did you,
There's a number of individual requests. Did you want me to start with the RMR request? Let's start with the RMR Schwab had requested originally before the Planning Commission to rezone his property at 655 Bridge Street, tax map 310, parcel 1698 to 1738, from business industrial DI to R3 urban residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of that request due to creation of spot zoning, inconsistency with existing zoning in the area, and negative impacts on the adjacent neighborhood. Mr. Schwab on August 14th hand-delivered a request to the Planning Department addressed to the Mayor and Commissioners requesting a change to change the zoning on his property from business industrial to C2 highway commercial. There was no recommendation by the Planning Commission on this request due to the date of his request. The Planning Department supports this requested change as the C2 zone would be consistent with the zoning classification on the adjacent properties to the north and south of the subject property. Let's try to bring it up for you.
What we will do now, the Elkton zoning map, and Jeannie will go down to all the requests that we have received in regards to the zoning changes. And after that, if there's any recommendations or comments, then we will hear those.
We're gonna, this is the, this is the RMR property in the purple. And the brownish zoning on either side is highway commercial C2. The purple zoning adjacent to it, which is a different shade than the PC zone, is business industrial zone. Did you want to request comments on these individually?
Yep, does anybody have any comments to the proposed changes on the RMR property?
That's the change from current BI to C2.
C2.
Which will not permit residential development on that lot. That was the issue.
There will be no residentials in that lot. You have any comments for or against? Anybody? Okay.
There's a hand up.
Mr. Mayor, when I was at the...
Please come up to the podium, please.
Mr. Mayor, when I was at the... my name is Keith Thompson at 707 Elkton Boulevard. When I was at the Planning and Zoning Department the other day, they informed me that C2 could also be commercial rentals. In other words, have a commercial property on the first floor and then rentals above. So I wanted to make that a clarification, unless I was told incorrectly.
All right, Jeannie, I think that's, well, we have that downtown
You
basically.
can have, you can have apartments above, but you have to have commercial.
On the first floor.
It has to be
Okay,
commercial
right.
development.
Just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
What's that?
Wait, just behind you.
I'm Larry Stork. I live at 302 Hollinger Street, Elkton Heights, Elkton, Maryland. I have several concerns I want to pass along about zoning. Route 213 and Bridge Street is very, very traveled at a very heavy pace right now. Adding anything or changing something to a residential area, even C2 with apartments over top of them, adds to a safety issue. I do believe also, when I served in the fire department, I was a liaison officer for RMR doing cleanup of that property with the United States Coast Guard. My question to the board, has that been resolved? It's still an EPA site. How do you zone an EPA site?
Well, it has been cleaned. It's been cleared through Department of the Natural
The Schwab
Resources.
has got a no further
Environment.
action, I believe, on the property, but I can't offer any testimony as to any additional EPA or MDE requirements if the slab was removed.
My concern is soil contamination. It's existing, has not been cleaned up. The only way you can clean it up, take all the dirt out, burn it, have it certified as being clean. And I know this from my experiences. So I'm very concerned, very concerned. Let's not rezone something or do something that is not going to be a potential for life hazard, which that would be. And the other fact is, are we going to tell the people they're going to build there, or whatever we're going to build there that's a hazmat site? Real concern, people. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Keene. I live at 403 Maryland Avenue. And originally I was opposed to the rezoning to R3, so I'm certainly glad to hear that the Planning Committee did not approve that. My concern is if the rezoning is to C2 and there are apartments that are allowed above the commercial, is there any restrictions to how many apartments, how high, the number of apartments? I mean, what are the requirements? Can it be like 10 stories of apartments as long as there's commercial below it?
He has to be able to meet his site constraints with respect to parking, stormwater management, and other things such as that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a height limit too.
Okay.
It's I think it's 3 stories, 45 feet.
3 stories?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my concern is that it does allow possibly quite a bit of residential apartments above the commercials. And as a lot of us expressed at the Planning Committee, there's a lot of concerns about having residential homes or apartments in that area. And I'd certainly be happy to go through all those that we went through with the Planning Committee. Now that we understand that there could be apartments above the commercial property. Would you like me to go through those concerns that we went through with the Planning Committee about having residential properties in that same area?
Public hearing.
I'm only speaking for myself, but there are a number of residents at the Planning Committee meeting who have a lot of interest, concerns about that. Certainly the first concern is all the surrounding properties are zoned B1 and C2. So to us it made no sense to have any type of residential living in an area that's currently zoned for businesses and commercial. It doesn't appear that there's any growth, unfortunately, in that area that would justify having residential living in the form of apartments out in that section of town. The additional traffic in and out, as the gentleman said before, Bridge Street is already extremely busy. It's very hard to get out on Bridge Street just about any time of the day. To add additional pedestrian traffic, there's no sidewalks in the area. It's very difficult for people who might live in apartments above commercial property to access Bridge Street or any place up and down Bridge Street. As said before, the Maryland Department of Environment has given approval for business to be there, but there's no approval for residential. And it's my understanding that the reason that they didn't allow Mr. Schwab to take up the concrete slab was because they don't know what's beneath the slab. In order to build on that and then put apartments in there, I think that slab would have to be taken up, and you would expose anybody, whether it's commercial or families who are living there, to what might be underneath the slab. And of course that would have to be remediated, like the gentleman before said. The local elementary school, Gilpin Elementary School, is already over capacity, so if you put apartments and assuming there's more children in the apartments, it's just going to tax the existing schools that are in the area. The town does need growth, but you're now going to have a town center, so to me it makes sense if you're going to have apartments or townhouses, you want that closer to the town center so it can support the local businesses that the town center might attract. And my concern too is that apparently the town had a pressure on the owner to take down the dilapidated structure from the RMR building. And if there is commercial property or apartments that he should build, I'm concerned about the upkeep of that area. And I'm also a local resident in Elkton Heights. We currently see a lot of vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic through Elkton Heights. I'm concerned about the additional traffic that putting not just commercial but apartments in that area might bring. And I'm also concerned about property values. We're already living in an area that has devalued property, and I'm concerned that commercial and apartments on top of that, what that might do to the property values. So those are my concerns. I have no concerns about it being zoned commercial. I do have a lot of concerns if there's apartments above the commercial, which apparently C2 would allow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Eric?
My name's Eric Schwab. I'm from Schwab LLC. I'm the owner of RMR. Our request for R3 was withdrawn based on public comment. We're simply asking to enjoy the same zoning that adjoining property owners that front on Bridge Street currently enjoy. In reference, there's been some environmental questions and comments. It is a matter of public record. We do have an NFRD on the property. Below the slab was tested. There will be additional monitoring when the slab comes out for whatever use it may be. There have been some questions about possible residential use. Should there be any residential use proposed, we would have to go through an entire gamut of MDE requirements to even put residential on that site. We're simply asking to enjoy the same zoning that, again, adjoining property owners have, so that we can get a marketable property and get something built on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Is this just limited to the RMR lot or the whole gamut?
No, arm arm.
Just only RMR?
Mhm.
Because I have some comments about the other things that they.
If you're going to speak about RMR, we can do that now. You wouldn't.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Bernard of 4 Bonnie Marie Court here in Elkton, Villages of Walnut Hill. Gentlemen, my concern is, this all looks beautiful and fancy on paper, and we're living in a time now where our country is being regulated to death. And the first part of this conversation, all I heard was regulations, which the unintended consequence is added cost, added cost, added cost. You're trying to attract businesses, you're trying to attract residency. You're going to make it impossible for anybody to afford to live in Elkton. Is that what we want to do? We're almost driving what little taxpayer base we have out with added cost. And I don't care if it's, the $5 cell phone thing the president just proposed. He's driving people out of metropolitan areas. That's my only concern. You want to make all these changes and add all of this, well, as a taxpayer here in this town, how much more of a burden am I supposed to bear? Or how much of a burden do you expect somebody to up and move from where they are now to someplace that's going to be more expensive to move to? It doesn't make any sense. I've lived in this town since the early 60s. We've made a lot of progress, but we've also added a lot of expenses. We have sidewalks that lead to nowhere. It's just, things are getting out of hand regulatory-wise. Just a recent statistic nationwide, 1975, 74,000 pages of regulations. 2011, 177,000 pages of regulations. It's just add a couple thousand more. It's at some point you got to draw a line and say, enough's enough until we can get things back into fiscal responsibility here. I don't think adding expenses and costs to everybody that wants to come to this area is the answer. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? RMR. Okay, then we're going to move on. Jeannie, you got the list?
There's a request of Gerald and Carolyn Dean, D&W Investors, for property located at 110 Delaware Avenue, tax map 311, parcel 1100 and 1101 from R3 urban residential to RO residential office. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this zoning change.
Mr. Mayor, I have been representing the property owners in this process, appeared before the Planning Commission and appearing before you this evening. As you can see, this particular property has basically as much RO property around it as R3. Across the street there is a property that has historically been used for commercial purposes. This property is at the intersection of Delaware Avenue and Howard Street. It's an ideal place to have someone that may want to have an office downstairs and reside upstairs. The house has been rehabilitated by my clients. Currently there is a resident in it. There had been an inquiry about the potential of possibly having an office in there. And I think it would fit neatly in with what is in that particular area, that this property would work well for RO and not just R3. There's a little bit of space to provide some parking, and like I said, it's had a history of having some commercial use right there at that corner. So we would hope that you would favorably consider the request. I think it allows for the kind of use that you've been looking for here in the downtown area, where you can have a sort of a combination of a residential and business right here in town.
Can you state that address again, please?
110 Delaware Avenue. It's right at the corner there at Delaware Avenue and Howard Street.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. All right, does any other comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? Any? Okay. Jeannie?
The next request, Mr. David Mangano of Paint and Play Signs had requested for his property located at 405 North Bridge Street, parcels 738 and 739, map 310, from business industrial to C2 highway commercial. The Elkton Planning Commission did not make a recommendation. Mr. Mangano wasn't present at the meeting, and there was a question as to whether he still owns the property. It appears that he does still own the property. So the Planning Commission did not make a recommendation on this particular zoning request, but I would recommend approval of the C2 zone due to the site constraints of that parcel. It's a very small parcel. The business industrial zone has greater setbacks than the C2 zone, and the building that's situated on that site doesn't meet the business industrial setbacks, but it would meet the C2 setbacks, the highway commercial setbacks. But that's the little parcel right here. You can place signs.
Okay. Any comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? Okay, hearing none. Jeannie, number 3.
The next request was from Dennis Wilson of PICO, Philadelphia Electric Company, for property located on the north side of West High Street, tax map 310, parcel 2003, from business industrial to C1 Central Business District. As you can see, this parcel is actually bisected by what is existing C1 downtown commercial zoning and business industrial zoning to the west. It's unusual for a property this small to have 2 different zoning classifications on it. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended changing the zoning on this property to the new Town Center TC zoning district, which is immediately adjacent to this site. So the entire parcel will be Town Center zoning, which is consistent with what's adjacent to the site. That's the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Okay, any comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? Any? Okay, hearing none. Jeannie, next.
I'm going to jump down to actually request number 5, which is right next to this one. Request number 5 is from Lee Younts of Lee LLC for property located at Elkton Boulevard, tax map 310, parcel 676. from R2 suburban residential to C2 highway commercial. The planning commission recommended approval of this requested change to correct a non-conforming situation. This is the location of the VFW. It's currently in a residential zone, and the request is to zone it something more suitable than a residential zone. So the adjacent zoning is TC, Town Center zoning. So the recommendation by the Planning Commission is to also include that in the Town Center zoning classification.
Okay, do I have any comments or recommendations?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. And Commissioners, Keith Thompson, again, 707 Elkton Boulevard. Gene, you got a little confused there. Are you talking about Lee LLC property is request number 5?
Yes, I jumped ahead to number 5.
Oh, yeah.
No, you went to
I'm
number
sorry.
6.
Yeah, that's what I mean, that's 6.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is number 6.
Number 6,
Must have
right.
changed. Apologize, but that is the,
Where's the
5 is up on the other side of the railroad tracks on Bridge Street.
It's on South College Avenue. Yeah, thanks for noticing that.
yeah, VFW is number 6.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Number 6 is the one I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay.
And that was
I don't have
the
anything on
performers.
number
Thanks
6.
for correcting that.
Good thing
Jumping
you're
from the
here.
map to
I'll tell you that.
Let me keep you straight. I'm jumping from the map to the paper. I apologize. You're correct. Number 6 is the VFW, Veterans of Foreign War, for property located at 140 Maffitt Street, tax map 310, parcel 415, 416, and 419, from R3 urban residential to C1 central business district. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended changing the zoning on this property to the new TC Town Center zone. And again, that's it right here. That's VFW.
Okay, is there any addition or comments, recommendations on this rezoning? Okay, hearing none. Going back to number 3.
The next is Lee Gals, which is number 5,
Number
which is
5.
right there, for property on Elkton Boulevard. Tax map 310, parcel 676, from R2 suburban residential to C2 highway commercial. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this requested change to correct the non-conforming situation. We have a commercial building on the corner, and right here, which is zoned C2, and this is the parking lot for that building, and it's zoned residential R2. So we'd like to correct that non-conformity. It's been used as a parking lot for years.
That's the old Four Corners.
Yeah, the old Four Corners.
All right, any comments or recommendations on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My wife and I live exactly across the street from there. We used to run Four Corners Tavern. It's a little deceptive there because the actual parcel is probably 1/3 the size of that. The actual property line cuts through the middle of the parking lot. So I want to make sure that it's correct on the zoning map, otherwise you will have changed the zoning on my neighbor across the street, and I don't know that she would have liked that.
Oh, okay.
So you might want to check on that. The only other comment about that, it has been used as a parking lot, strictly as a parking lot. But I want to make sure that Public Works Department collects their money, because they've been cutting the grass there for the last couple of years on that parcel. So I want to make sure that, you know, that's collected on that. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. So the property line actually cuts across the parking lot?
Cuts right through the middle of the parking lot. So it's a very tiny parcel. It's much smaller than what's indicated on that. If I can show you.
Sure.
The actual parcel is about like right there.
Wow.
Our neighbor that lives across the street is in that parcel. That's most of that parcel shown over there.
Yeah, they would have to have a subdivision.
Yeah.
We'll call it subdivision.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good. Any additional comments, recommendations for this parcel?
Yes, going back to number 4.
Number 4.
Okay. Number 4 is a request from Peter O'Rourke, Delaware Land Associates, for property located on the north side of Red Hill Road, for a small section of the recorded but not constructed Liberty Hill subdivision, Phase 1, tax map 311. Parcels include part of parcel 2185, parcel 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, and 163 from R1 Town Estate to R2 Suburban Residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this requested change. When Mr. O'Rourke had purchased the property, there were larger tracts of land in there, and one of which was zoned R1. He never requested a zoning change for that property. He would have to prove change or mistake at that point in time. So he just continued with his subdivision and accommodated the slight difference there is in the minimum lot size between R1 and R2 when he laid out his subdivision and subsequently recorded it. He would like to correct this sort of problem between the R1 and R2 zoning and have his subdivision all R2.
Okay, any comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? All right, hearing none. Jeannie?
We're going to do Barry Montgomery. Yes, number 7, Barry Montgomery. Yes. H. Barry Montgomery has requested his property located on the east side of Augustine Herman Highway, Maryland 213, and recorded as the Woods subdivision, tax map 320, parcel 2360, from R1 Town Estate to R3 Urban Residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended to changing the zoning on this property to R2 Suburban Residential. The Elkton Planning Commission expressed concerns about impacts of high-density development on the adjacent wetlands, wanted to ensure that adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached developments, and noted that R2 zone land is adjacent to this property. I believe Mr. Montgomery had agreed to the recommended change in zoning to R2 as opposed to R3.
Yeah, the planning commission asked if I was willing to compromise to the R2 instead of the R3, and at that point I didn't have much choice, but my name is Barry Montgomery, I'm from Rising Sun, Maryland. This particular parcel of property, the highland, the upland part of the property is out of the wetlands, but probably 60% of the property is wetlands, 50 to 60% is wetland, and the wetlands dissect the property in such a way that it minimizes the number of usable lots in that recorded plat. And since '89, when that was recorded, that was the first section of the Crowdy Farm that was never done. The rules have substantially changed for this development. You've got the nursing home on the corner. You've got another assisted housing project of some type on 2414. And there's that type of housing in the area. The best use of the usable land would be more of a denser type situation. Now the R2 zoning allows smaller lots than the R1 does, and it allows duplexes. But I'm not in favor of duplexes, because duplexes, 2 houses on 1 lot, are not a good product for rent or sale, either one. But the smaller lots would allow you to put attached dwellings on two lots, on two separate lots. So again, that was the compromise they offered, and I accepted that. Still like to request the R3 if you would consider that, because this little drawing that I colored in shows the green being the wetlands and the white being the usable areas of ground. So you can see all down in the lower side of it, it all goes downhill, and it's all woods, and it's a lot of wetlands in there. So again, I still will accept the R2, but I still request an R3.
Do you have to go through Price Drive to get to that? Is that what you're saying?
After what?
Price Drive? You have to go through that to get to the development?
Well, the lower section, the street to the lower section down here is a proposed new street off of 213.
Okay.
But that area of the project would not be a viable single-family development project at all for the area of ground that was usable there. Now the street up at the top where Price Drive in, it's in there to where the cul-de-sac is. Okay. Not all the way back there, but right to there. It's in there to where it says Price Drive, and you see the end line. The driveway's in, that street's in there, and the nursing home is there on the left side. So it fits and suits similar to that type of project for the usable land that's there. And that's the purpose of my request. Again, there's several hundred acres of R1 ground to the east, and even on the other side. So there's lots of R1 ground that's available for development. And I guess there's been various tries at trying to do some of that, but single-family development right now is a tough situation. And again, like the previous gentleman was saying, regulation puts the cost and the ability to do some of those things almost prohibitive.
Okay. Is there any comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? Anyone? Okay, thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Okay, the next request, there were two requests on one letter that was submitted. One for Richard Saracini. This is number 8 and 9 on your list. Richard Saracini for property located at 302 Landing Lane, tax map 314, parcel 180, change from R3 urban residential to C2 highway commercial. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this requested change. And for Mr. Tracy Robb for property adjacent to that, located at 304 Landing Lane, tax map 314, parcel 181, from R3 urban residential to C2 highway commercial. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of this requested change. That's these two little properties right here. This is Route 40, and this is the two properties, the two residential properties.
Okay, is there any comments or recommendations in regard to this rezoning?
This is part of 305 Landing Lane. Being forced to be redone.
This is the east side of Landing Lane, 302 and 304.
Any comments or recommendations? Okay, hearing none. Jeannie?
Okay, the next one is number 10. Mr. Richards A. Sexton and DMS Development, David Bachman, contract purchaser, for property located at 307 Landing Lane, tax map 314, parcel 197, from R residential office to C2 highway commercial. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this request. In addition, in order to create uniformity and adequate depth of the commercial zoning district adjacent to Route 40, the Elkton Planning Commission recommended changing the zoning on the adjacent parcels 196 and 198 from R residential office to C2 highway commercial. It's to be noted that I had received a letter from the owner of parcel 196 objecting to the rezoning of his property to C2. And that's on this side of the street. These three parcels right here in red are zoned residential office. These two here are zoned commercial, and these are zoned R3 residential.
Okay, do I have any comments or recommendations in regards to this rezoning? Come up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen.
State your name and address.
My name's Andrew Whitehead. I live at 305 Landing Lane. I've been there for approximately 15, 16 years. The rezoning, I strongly oppose this rezoning because it's going, I don't know if you know the intentions for this rezoning, but there is an intent to build a Wawa right behind my property. And the property adjacent to my property, parcel 197, was bought to put an access road into the Wawa. If that road is put in, my property will be surrounded by traffic, 2-lane tractor trailers passing by my fence line, 10, 15 feet outside my windows, all hours of the night. It's going to drop. I'll never be able to get rid of the house. I have a doctor's office on one side. I have this Wawa 2-lane highway to supply the Wawa, bringing the supplies and entrance to a Wawa on the other side, approximately 15 feet outside my windows on my house. It would make it almost impossible to get out of my driveway. I strongly oppose being forced to be rezoned. I won't be able to sell my house. I just object wholeheartedly. And I believe my wife would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, Commissioners.
State your name again.
My name is Rebecca Whitehead. I'm also a property owner at 305 Landing Lane. And I'm going to reiterate what my husband is saying. You know, on this map, it looks like a little plot of land. It's a home. We have a doctor's office beside us. We moved in, we knew that. You know, it works. And there's a house next door to us that when we moved in, it was an apartment. You know, it was an older house converted to apartments. That's all well and good. Not a problem. I love my home. We've been there for 15, 16 years. Raised our children. Have gatherings there all the time. It's a home. Well, what they are doing, Wawa had purchased, from my understanding, the old Knights of Columbus building that sits right on 40. You know, I love being in town, I love being in the thick of things, but what I do not love is something, a driveway, an access and an exit to Wawa right outside my kitchen window, and it will run the length of my property. It's 10 to 15 feet right outside the window. In the backyard, it will be running right by my fence line. This not only is a health hazard with added exhaust fumes, it potentially could be very dangerous to anybody sitting outside my home enjoying my pool. Accidents happen all the time, and I would hate for a truck to come through my fence and injure or kill somebody just enjoying time by the pool. Wawa, in order to get approval to open a store, there has to be a traffic pattern of, at the very minimum, 25,000 vehicles. And that's a minimum. And if you just consider 1/4 of it going right by my kitchen window every single day, 24/7, that's 2,500 cars. You know, I can't state how strongly I oppose this. This is coming from the heart. You know, I love, you know, that our county is changing, it's growing. I mean, some of the changes are for the better, but quite frankly, this will financially impact us because, like my husband said, we will never be able to sell. Not that we really want to sell, but we will never be able to sell. And how will we live there? We are not going to be able to enjoy the quiet solitude of our home, period. There's no way. And, you know, I really do hope that you do not allow this to go through. We have been approached by Mr. Berkheimer on at least 3 occasions. And each time, we were made to believe it was going to be for the good of us. Not so much. I mean, we did our homework. We looked into it. You know, he was just trying to make it easy on himself, you know, to get this commercial rezoning of our property, our residential property. And, you know, I really do hope that you consider not allowing this rezoning to go through.
Okay.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Dennis Clower, representing the proposed contract purchaser, DMS Development, the contract purchaser of the Knights of Columbus property and the lot that they were just talking about. We purposely sat back and waited. We knew that there was going to be opposition. We wanted to let the neighbors have an opportunity to state their concerns, and then we want to present our side of it as well. This is Mike Artell with me. He is a member of the
DMS Development in Towson, Maryland, and we would be the contract purchasers of the Knights of Columbus and Sexton property. And we've asked, looking at the parcel and the shape of it, the first 2 parcels between the Knights of Columbus and Landing Lane, there are 5 there. The first 2 are commercial, as stated, but the next 3 lots are residential. And at some point in the future, if someone were to acquire all of those, that's a very valuable piece of commercial property. So we were asking to have it rezoned. Obviously, we understand the neighbor's concern about the activity that would cause. I know that there's a lot of cars and a lot of action. Of course, I think there will be 2 entrances on Route 40 should we be able to get this accomplished. And, you know, we would still have to get this access to Landing Lane approved, which is not a given. But the access to Landing Lane is obviously for more of the local traffic, whereas we would have a couple access points on Pulaski Highway for most of the drive-by. And we do think that we understand that the residents would say, well, I might not sell my house, no one would buy my house. But however, if they were all commercial parcels at some point, it would be very valuable to someone to acquire all of them when those people decided they would like to sell. And I think it would be valuable to them at that point.
It's in the nature of comprehensive rezoning that sometimes some difficult decisions need to be made, but it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the zoning definition for C2, which is this zone is primarily automobile accessible, is adjacent to major transportation routes, and where new development can be grouped with existing compatible development. We're not asking to take an RO property out of an RO zone and make it C2. We're just asking that the properties that are currently RO be made conforming with what is on either side of it and what's requested on the other side. It basically would fill out the block of C2 to an acceptable depth from the major arterial road of Route 40. It just makes sense in terms of long-term planning that if you're going to have commercial growth, this is where you have it. This close to a signalized intersection, and with the commercial development all around it, this is just it just makes sense. So we obviously request that you endorse the recommendations of the Planning Commission. They're aware of and they believe that this meets the criteria of the comprehensive plan and the comprehensive zoning. We hope that you'll agree with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But before you leave, I know there's changes and growth, but on the humane side of the legitimate points that they do you buy into what she's saying? No, him.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I do understand what their concerns are. It would be a commercial entrance, it's probably a 24-foot driveway between their house and the other commercial property. So I do understand that. And, like I said, we would still have to show the planning commission and deal with the traffic issues and prove that it's safe, and I'm sure we'd have to provide landscaping and fencing and treatment to try and shield the neighbor from the commercial use. I think that the landing lane entrance probably would, it's very important, but it's more for the local, for the town people, whereas there'll be several entrances along Pulaski Highway, so hopefully you would see the majority of and certainly the trucks, you would think it would be much easier for them to come in on Pulaski Highway. And certainly those things would be negotiated as well. Should that be something that would help?
That's the point we wanted to make. The zoning of this piece of property doesn't mean that there is going to be an unregulated access at that point. It still requires a lot of approval to get it done. And as Mike was saying, then the traffic is not going to be coming into that side from off of Route 40. It'll be in and out off of Route 40. But
that would be an assumption right now because of the projects that done yet.
Right.
Okay.
I'm like Givens, Commissioner Givens. You've got to think about the well-being of the citizen that has staked their life into a certain piece of property, regardless about a business. I too want growth in the town of Elkton, but impacting a person's way of living and life because of a business, you've got to think of take their consideration on how their family is dealing with a situation where there's people coming through it don't even live in that little area but just passing by. The thing is, you've got to remember the safety, the long-term jeopardy of what this person has put in. If you live in a certain place and you plan on living there for the rest of your life, you got to think of what's going to impact your house or your family. And I see exactly what they're asking. So you need to think about the options you have that will deter you away from being negative to the residents.
I understand.
And we would do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, Mr. Mayor. My name is Lisa Kegley. I live off of Landing Lane. I am sister-in-law to them. I live off of Landing Lane, and my major concern is we have the light on 40, and we have the doctor's office, and then right past that, you're going to have an entrance. Getting through there any time of the day is hectic. All the traffic that it's going to cause. And all the traffic coming in and out is a concern. It's going to be all hours of the night, the safety that you're worried about. If they're saying that most of the traffic will come off 40, why does there have to be an entrance there? Is the concern. And it's going to hold everything up there at 40. That intersection is so busy, and getting out of there is unsafe. Even if you're coming across all that traffic, there's just a lot of concern there for the safety.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, Jeannie.
Okay, the next request is request number 11 from Hampton Scott, 814 Bridge Street, for properties located at 810, 812, and 814 Bridge Street, tax map 306, parcels 2168, 2420, 2170, and 2169, from R2 Suburban Residential to RO Residential Office. When the Elkton Planning Commission heard this, they recommended approval of this requested change. However, They were not aware that the other 3 property owners, there's 4 property owners along that stretch, did not know that Mr. Hampton Scott was requesting the change in zoning for the property, and they do not wish to have their properties rezoned. So that was brought to my attention after the Planning Commission hearing. The Planning Department recommends no change in zoning for these parcels at the current time. Let me zoom in on that. It's these parcels right here. A vacant lot and a couple single-family homes here. This is the fire department field behind the fire department, and this is 213 Bridge Street.
Okay. Hampton?
Good evening. My name is Hampton Scott. I live at 140 Frenchtown Road in Elkton. And my request for rezoning, yes, it was for my parcel. I didn't request any other parcels. If you look at my request.
Your request included all the other parcels?
No, it did not. No. My request was to, and I guess you should look at my letter.
I looked at your, at the Planning Commission meeting, we asked which parcels, and you had identified all
No.
those parcels.
Well, I requested mine, but I called to the attention of the commission. Now, that's where we're confused. I said, can I walk up to the map? Is that okay? Can you hear me? My point was that I'm the life member of the fire company. When the fire company changed this to, it was changed to commercial zoning, that I wasn't opposed to it, but I brought to the attention of Jeannie, and she doesn't disagree with me, that you're making a residential island here. And she said, well, I understand that, and when we change the comprehensive plan, that'll be your opportunity to address that. So you're changing the comprehensive plan, and since this is commercial down here, and it's from there to Colonial Acres almost, you can't see on here, but I guess you could drop the map down and show from 2429 almost to Colonial Acres, that's all residential office. It's industrial across the street. You talk about spot zoning, to me, that's spot zoning. But to alleviate the concerns of my neighbors, which I couldn't imagine why they'd be upset by it. It's my understanding, and not tonight's the night to find out, if it's changed to RO, can't all the other parcels, or can't those parcels still be used the same as they are now? Is that correct? Does my letter just say?
Yeah, it says, I respectfully would like the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee to consider rezoning these 4 parcels to RO zoning in order to more properly reflect the true and actual nature of the property, considering the surrounding property zoning.
Oh, I said 4 parcels in my letter?
Yes.
Okay. Now, well, that wasn't my intent, because I can only speak for myself, and I don't want to speak for the other property owners. But in any event, mine is just an empty lot up there. But well, all right. Let's go back to the question. Since everybody's here, if you have RO zoning, can't you still have houses there? Just that nothing would change, except for the fact that if one of those that are rezoned, you could have an office there.
Correct.
Okay. Because I don't quite understand why you wouldn't want to sort of have an upgrade where you could have other uses. Previous testimony here tonight about how heavy the traffic is. You have commercial behind it, commercial to the south, industrial to the west, and commercial and RO north of it. To me, it's a residential island. But that's all. I'd like to hear what the other neighbors have to say. Anybody on the board have any questions for me?
Now we're looking for just the one parcel?
Are you now just requesting just your parcel?
Oh, no, I can't ask for a request for somebody else. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, but I really, you know,
You'd like your parcel?
well, you're creating more of an island if you just make mine RO. You know, if you're not going to recommend all those be changed to RO, I don't want to be the only RO in the middle of that. I think that's even worse. I just think that whole backward 7 or upside down hockey stick would be better off zoned to RO. And nobody loses. Everybody has all the benefits that they have now. Why would you?
Gene, could you point out his parcel again, please?
Unfortunately, this
Well, I
is-
can, but I can show them.
It's right on, you want to pass the
Yeah,
letter?
that's right.
Right
Okay.
in there. It's
Okay.
right in the middle of this.
It's in the middle.
And then it's an empty lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, the one other thing, but in reading the new comprehensive plan, the description of residential office district is, the purpose of this district is to provide for a mixture of residential uses and business uses that are not unduly disruptive of high-density residential areas located in the same district. Generally, this district covers the mixed-use areas bordering commercial centers. Well, I mean, it's commercial pretty much all the way around it, except for industrial across the street. Okay, that's all.
So, Mr. Scott, have you actually spoken to the other parcel owners?
Well,
at all?
we talked when the fire company, we all attended the meeting when you changed that from whatever the fire company was, R1 or something. Well, it was from R1 to commercial. We talked at that point whether we were happy with that or not, and we generally weren't excited about having commercially zoned property right behind our residential properties. So, and I can only speak of one other person that I talked to, and they're here tonight, so, you know, I'm sure they'd like to say something. I wasn't speaking for all of them, and I certainly didn't mean to. That certainly was an error on my part, requesting 4 rezonings. I'm sort of surprised that they weren't notified to come to the planning commission.
I think we had made the assumption that they were.
Well, we were all working together?
Yeah.
Okay, no, because I ran into one out in the hall tonight, and I said, well, I didn't even get a letter, so, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to comment and or make recommendations on this rezoning?
My name is Jane Summers, and I am the property owner.
Put yourself closer, hon. There you go.
I am the property owner next to 814. My property is 812 Bridge. It borders 814. My question is, what are the intentions of this party if he's going to build? What are the stipulations for RO versus residential? I'm not familiar with that. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm very happy with the way my property is zoned. I'm not interested in changing it. I do not know that it will benefit me in any way, and I don't see any reason to for the rezoning of that property. It is a 50-foot property, if I'm right. I don't know what your setbacks are. See, I don't know what I'm agreeing to if I agree to the change. So at this point in time, as ignorant as I am of it, I'm really not interested in that change.
Okay, thank you.
We also, I met with Mrs. Gills at 810 Bridge Street. She came in to see me. She wasn't comfortable speaking in front of the board, but wanted me to relay her wishes that her property not be rezoned. And Mrs. Fernandez also, the property at the very north part of that, also expressed via telephone that she does not wish for her property to be rezoned.
Anyone else? Wish to speak or comment on this rezoning?
Question, are you speaking of this specific road zone?
Right.
Okay, now.
Okay. All right. Hearing none. Next, Jeannie.
Okay, the next properties are number of properties for Southside LLC.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, my name is James Delmeyer. I'm here representing Southside LLC, who are the property owners of the Southfields collection of properties. They rest on 213 and 40 and are the southwestern and southeastern sides of 213 in that southerly portion of the town. Will the mayor entertain a comment about one of the proposed zoning ordinances first, or should I move directly to the rezoning?
Well, let's do it now.
Okay. The one comment that Southside LLC did have regarding the proposed zoning relates specifically to Article 14, which references common open space and neighborhood parks. We believe this might have just been an oversight in the particular wording and language used. Specifically, the change from the original Article 14 to the new proposed includes a provision that states, except as provided below, it is the intent of this section that the required land area for neighborhood parks is in addition to the open space required in this subsection. That language has an exception to it related specifically to apartments in the proposed zoning. What it does not account for is the planned unit development article, which I know is not before you all this evening, but it does impact that without addressing it. Specifically, like the apartment caveat, the planned unit development already provides that 25% of a PUD must be open space. That PUD ordinance further requires that 50% of the 25 must be active or recreational space. So by including this additional separation in the open space article, we're now requiring even more active recreation, which really is already accounted for under the planned unit development. So what we're proposing is that just like the apartment section under that subsection, which is number 3, we propose to add a number 4, which states that planned unit developments, like apartments, would also be exempt from that joint requirement. And the language specifically, I believe, is included in the letter that we submitted. I believe Gene has that. But the proposed language would be in that subsection, in the case of planned unit developments, the requirements, as stated in Article 11 of this ordinance, which is the planned unit development, that 50% of the required 25% open space be suitable for usable recreational. Said 50% shall satisfy the neighborhood park requirement of this section. We're adopting the exact language that is for the apartments and using it for the PUD, just because both of those things, again, already account for active recreation. And I think it might have just been a mistake in that it said neighborhood parks is in addition to the open space. In this context, it really should be, is included within the idea of active recreational space. That would be our comment related to the proposed zoning ordinance, and I thank you for your consideration of that. Moving on directly now to the requested rezoning under the comprehensive plan of these parcels. What we're going to do is hand out materials that we have prepared, an illustration specifically that shows the existing zoning of the many parcels that we have and the proposed zoning that we would respectfully ask to move to. And just for the sake of the record, I apologize for not doing this sooner. That one of the principals of Southside LLC is seated to my left. That is Bruce Schneider, as well as John Fellows of Duffield Associates. He'll be here to answer any technical questions as well related to the parcels, and he'll have some supplementation to the presentation. One of the, with that diagram you have there, I'm going to, reading or looking at the diagram essentially from east to west. The parcels are designated here. We're seeking essentially a move from the existing underlying zoning to an R3 for all of the parcels that are presented on the existing zone here in this diagram, except there's a couple designations that we're requesting related to C2, and specifically that's tax map 320, parcel 2369. It's currently zoned as R2 and R3, a mix of those. Respectfully requesting that the property be redesignated as R3 throughout its entirety, except for the top portion. We're asking that it be marked as C2. So if you look at the proposed zoning diagram that we have there at the bottom of the page, it's that long piece that juts out from parcel 2369 in yellow, and that we would be requesting would be C2. That fits with the current commercial use as it abuts the properties that are commercial on Route 40, and that would be consistent with the zoning that surrounds that parcel. The other, besides the other R3s, tax map 320, parcel 2390, respectfully requesting that it remain C2, except that the top portion be designated as R3, and that would be consistent with the surrounding zoning on the parcels. And that's demonstrated in the proposed zoning diagram we have at the bottom part there. With this transition, of course, the question is this consistent with the comprehensive plan? And we pose that it is. Specifically, the comprehensive plan for the town of Elkton references the Southfield properties in many locations. It talks about it accounts for, rather, future growth in the town, and specifically relies on the Southfield properties in those projections. For example, the comprehensive plan cites, we're looking at around table 3.8, talks about how if the underlying zoning is developed out as it exists now, the town under the future projected growth would actually be 810 units short of those projections. So this idea of moving from an R2 or an R1 to an R3 would support us developing additional units under that zoning to account for this future growth, which has been considered under the comprehensive plan. Specifically, one of the concerns that was raised at the Planning Commission, which I want to address, was that the concern for moving from an R1 to an R3, at which we do have some pieces which are designated, you can see on the existing zoning, as R1 currently. The response that I have for that is that table 3.8 of the comprehensive plan itself cites already existing and proposed R1 developments. So in the comprehensive plan, we've already accounted for R1 development, and that is those estate-style homes. And we would pose that the Southfield properties are not appropriate for that type of development. It's just simply not designed that way in the overall scheme under the comprehensive plan, and nor is it with the surrounding zoning, which is both town and existing county zoning, because we do have a lot of mixed parcels in this area. Under the growth area, which these parcels are contemplated to be part of the growth area number 4, which is identified in the comprehensive plan, they specifically state that this area is intended to be a medium to high density growth area and development area. Clearly R1 would not support that goal under the comprehensive plan. And that's why it's consistent with the town's plan. One of the other issues relates to the existing zonings of the properties or the parcels, that immediately are within and surround the Southfield properties. And I'm looking specifically now at the, if I can try to hold this up, you'll have it in front of you, but if you see these large gaps in parcels here, these white areas that are designated on this map, they're county property. They're not part of the town. They've been annexed by the county. They are actually designated currently under the zoning of the county as RM, which is multi-residential. Multi-residential in the county actually contemplates a higher density than what the town R3 allows for. So specifically what that means is, if we look at the parcels,
Here, I can go up and point to them.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, yeah, that'd be great.
The township line basically follows what this is called the Easter Cut. And this piece was annexed into the town some years ago as an R2. The surrounding area here, the residential along the Maloney Road, had a previous designation of DR, I believe, and just in 2011, they rezoned that RM, which is high density residential. So all these property owners around in this area in the county are now high-density residential, meaning these larger parcels that are immediately adjacent to the Southfield properties, future development can occur on these properties in the form of apartments or townhouses. So we don't have this change of possible densities that we had before prior to 2011. Now we have basically like densities. If this is rezoned to R3, this is essentially your R3 over here in the county.
And Mr. Fellows, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the parcel immediately to the left of tax map 320, 2371, the gap there, there's also RM, is that correct?
This parcel is the conservation.
And are there also RM designations within those other areas?
Sorry to interrupt. Actually, the conservation easement is right here.
Right, I'm sorry.
This is R1.
This is R1. This is R2. This is the conservation easement. Those are the properties that are zoned RM.
And my understanding is that those properties also include, if moving to the south on the other side of Fringetown Road. Okay, I apologize. That's not correct. So what we're specifically talking about is the outside on the eastern side of Maloney Road, specifically that relates to the RM.
Right.
So you're saying we couldn't put an R2 there and to make that workable? Put R2?
Say that again, Mr. Mayor?
Put an R2 there? I mean,
here?
No, like where you want to go from R1 to R3.
We can talk about that. We are just talking about this
Okay, all right,
parcel
good.
right now. We have some other issues on that
All right.
parcel concerning some environmental constraints and other development restrictions that I could get into at this point on that parcel. I'm John Fellows. I'm a landscape architect with Duffield Associates, and I've been involved with all of these parcels for a number of years doing concept planning and design development. And as part of that work, I've had an opportunity to get a real sense of the site configuration, the physical features of each one of these parcels, and I have a real sense of what's the lay of the land. And this parcel that you're talking about here has some real significant wetland considerations. The challenge with this piece in designing this piece and developing this piece is that the wetlands aren't confined to one certain area. It's more of a hodgepodge or a mosaic of upland and wetland areas that make it really a challenge to lay out and to design a development. There isn't really one large developable tract of land to lay this out. So it's really more consistent for a more compact, more dense design, which lends itself closer to the R3 type of product than an R1 product, which is more sprawling and spread out. An R3 development would allow the flexibility, or R3 zoning would allow the flexibility for a developer to come in there, put in a condensed design product, protect the environmentally sensitive areas, the wetlands, and provide significant open space around those environmentally sensitive areas for protection. It's just basically add some flexibility in this track to work around some of those challenges the wetlands pose on this piece of property.
So you don't feel that an R1 or an R2 could actually work in there, even though you're not getting as many units in there, is that it?
That's basically it. And we're also in the growth zone and the priority funding area on this piece of property. And those two programs, they're kind of guiding us towards this more compact, efficient type of design, which is closer knit, smaller properties, which allow more open space and protection of those features. I have a map. I have one, which shows the priority funding and the growth zone that is from the north side of, that is That's Frenchtown Road there, that's 213. So that portion north of Frenchtown Road is in this priority funding area, in the growth zone, which support more dense, compact design in lieu of sprawl. That's it on that one.
Any additional questions that we can answer?
Now, are you going from parcel to parcel? Because I haven't addressed the planning commission recommendations on these, so we wait till the end to do that?
You want to do it?
For each one of these parcels, and then wait till the end? Are you moving from parcel to parcel, or do you have a whole presentation you wanted to do first, or?
I think it was up to you, Gene, how you want to proceed. You want to proceed parcel to parcel, we can do that.
It'd probably be easier to do parcel to parcel.
All right.
So Jeannie can show them.
So it was
This is request number 15 by Mr. Bruce Schneider for property located on the south side of Route 40, East Colony Road, tax map 316, parcel 169, consisting of 59.9 acres. This one right here. From R2 suburban residential to R3 urban residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of the requested zoning change. The recommendation was based on their original recommendation of R2 zoning during the annexation of this parcel, existing development in the area, and to ensure adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached residential developments. Shall we move on to number 16? Did you already talk about 16? Are we done with 16?
We've addressed tax map 316, parcel 159, and then we went into the 320, 2371 parcel as well.
Can I go back to the first one you mentioned, Gene? And one other final comment on that first parcel. I don't know if the Planning Commission at that time realized the rezoning that occurred in the county to this high-density residential. I remember the comments during the Planning Commission meeting about protection to the surrounding owners, and I don't know if that is a valid point now when you have multifamily, high-density residential to the east in the county.
I think that part of that may have been some of the, when the project would come in for approval for the PUD, the people that live in this neighborhood here came in about the type of housing that was going to be up against their homes.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is this parcel here, which the dark line doesn't show it. It's sort of an odd shape. It's this one right here. That's listed as request number 16. Property located south of Route 40 and north of Frenchtown Road, tax map 320, parcel 2371, consisting of 244 acres, from R1 Town Estate to R3 Urban Residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of the requested change. The recommendation was based on existing development in the area and to ensure adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached residential developments.
And this property was addressed, as Mr. Fellows talked about, the unique nature and the problems with the density and wetlands and maximizing the usability of that land itself.
That's 17, Jeannie.
That's 16, 17.
Yes.
Oh, 17 is right here. Is this property located at the intersection of Frenchtown Road and 213. Tax map 324, parcel 2394, consisting of 39 acres, from R1 Town Estate to R3 Urban Residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of the requested change. The recommendation was based on existing development in the area and to ensure adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached residential development. Did you speak about that property yet?
We have not addressed this property, and this property abuts the currently zoned R3 urban residential property directly to the north. And this also, of course, obviously is right at the intersection of 213 and Frenchtown Road. it would be, even at the current zoning is R2 immediately across the street as well as commercial. This would be consistent with the zoning there as well as the usability of the parcel given its location.
And I'd also like to mention that a third of this property is within the highway corridor of 213 in that area as well.
The next one would be request number 12. A property located south of Route 40, east of Whitehall Road, tax map 320, part of parcel 2369, 8 acres of that parcel, from R3 urban residential to C2 highway commercial. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this request of change. And it's this piece right here, which is part of this parcel here.
And this represents keeping the existing R3 zoning, but taking that northerly part of the parcel and going to a C2 highway commercial would be consistent with the current zoning and use just south of US Route 40 there.
This is Route 40, and this is the former Walmart location, which is now a doctor's office and restaurants. This is request number 13, and it's just south of Whitehall Road. This piece right here. Property located on the west side of Augustine Herman Highway, Maryland 213, and south of Whitehall Road, tax map 320, part of parcel 2390, 8 acres also, from C2 highway commercial to R3 urban residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this request to change. All this area here in this light grayish tan color is zoned highway commercial. This property right here is the Villas at Whitehall Senior Housing Project. Senior housing is permitted to be built in the C2 zone. Housing for the elderly or handicapped is permitted to be built in the C2 zone. And that's what that is right there. This right here is the park for the Buttonwood subdivision. The town owns this parcel right here. This parcel is a little bit of commercial that's sort of behind the shopping center here. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval of this requested change and actually recommended that the Villas at Whitehall also be zoned R3, and also this piece of open space here to ensure this is all R3 zone land here and it's consistent. The change in zoning shouldn't have any effect on the Villas at Whitehall senior housing. It's permitted in all zones. It just happened to be commercial, and senior housing is permitted in the commercial zone. From C2 to R3. Consistency in zoning. So the Planning Commission recommended this 8-acre parcel of Mr. Snyder's, the Villas at Whitehall, and this piece of parkland for the town limits. John, did you want to talk about
18 or
this piece? Is it this piece here and this one?
okay? Again, these two pieces are zoned currently R2. We have a large piece of critical areas associated with the Elk River down here on this piece. Our proposal is to change this R2 to R3. Again, we have varying amounts of environmentally sensitive areas in here that cause challenges for an R2 development that would be better served with an R3 type of product. Again, a more condensed, compact design, abundant amount of open space and protection of those features. And we think that flexibility that the R3 provides would be beneficial to that tract. We are proposing a change of R2 to R3 for just the portion of this tract, which is tax map 323 parcel 79 for just a piece outside the critical areas to be consistent with the change of zoning for that R3 on tax map 319 parcel 2450.
Yeah, just explain to me why we can't put the R2 in there. I have a general idea, but I want you to explain to me why we couldn't continue with the R2 in that plan, in that instead of going from the R2 to the R3.
Well, the R2 doesn't allow the flexibility that an R3 would have to work around these areas that I need to mitigate against and to buffer against. And the R3 allows for that flexibility in that design. It allows me to provide single-family houses where it is adjacent to single-family houses. It also allows me to provide some multifamily up against where we have multifamily. And it allows me to get the density that we need to achieve and still protect those environmentally sensitive areas. It's not to say this whole thing is going to be multifamily. We're going to respect the single family across Frenchtown Road, but certainly up where we have R3 up along Whitehall, that might be the opportunity maybe to put some multifamily, and as well as maybe a section around the existing commercial, try to transition from the intense use of the commercial to a less intense use of multifamily residential to single family as we move on out from this commercial center. So the R3 allows that flexibility where the R2 does not.
Okay.
For property located on the west side of, I'm just seeing from the highway, here we go. Tax map 319 parcel 2450.
Just talked about that one.
Okay.
And that, Gene, that was basically in conjunction with tax map 323 parcel 79, which is the piece down closer to the upriver and has the critical area piece that we're only proposing to take the portion outside the critical area and rezone that from R2 to R3.
Okay, so with respect to this parcel here, tax map 319 parcel 2450 consisting of 101.2 acres from R2 suburban residential to R3 urban residential. The Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of the requested change. The recommendation is based on existing development in the area and to ensure adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached residential developments. For the next parcel adjacent to this, this is number 19 on your list. Tax map parcel 323, tax map 323 parcel 79 consisting of 70.1 acres. From R2 suburban residential to R3 urban residential, the Elkton Planning Commission recommended denial of the requested change. The recommendation was based on their original recommendation of R2 zoning during the annexation of this parcel, existing development in the area, potential impacts to the floodplain and Chesapeake Bay critical areas, and to ensure adequate R1 and R2 land is available for future single-family detached residential developments. That concludes the individual requests for rezoning.
Well, first of all, do we have any comments or recommendations in regards to these rezoning proposals? Anyone? Any comments?
Can I say something?
I'm Gretchen Ginder, and I live in Elkton Heights. And I'm just wondering if you've taken into consideration the effect this is going to have on the school system. Holly Hall Elementary would take a lot of children from these areas, and it's already overflowing with children. And I just think to just keep building and building and building without regards to the school, the number of schools we have, the number of children in our schools, and if the county would even consider building another school. So that's just my concern, is that you're going to put a big, making it very difficult for the schools.
Yeah, I brought this up a couple of years ago to a couple of the administrators at the school board, and they did talk. I think they talked to the owners about the area and the project. I'm not sure exactly what went on with it, but it was brought up as far as impact on the school system.
And as part of that discussion, the developer has agreed to set aside 15 acres of this property of, what was it, tax map 320, parcel 2390 for the use of a new school, a new elementary school.
Yeah, that was mentioned previously, but it
Yeah.
still goes back to the fact that it costs to put that building there. And, I concur with what Gretchen is saying, and I know Earl spoke about it before. It would definitely be an impact on the school system, even though you're still going to lay aside the acreage.
Anyone else, gentlemen?
Yeah. My name is Rick Keene. I live at 403 Maryland Avenue. I guess I have a concern on one of the previous proposals. It just seems like there's a large chunk of land that's currently zone R1 that's being requested moved to, I believe it was R2 or R3. And if you could slide the map over, use that portion, I believe, south of, right there. The request for number 16, currently zone R1 to R3. I believe the concern was that on the upper portion of that was some wetlands. I think you said approximately 4 acres of wetlands. It's been 10 years since I worked with the regulations, but at one time it was my understanding that if you have an area that has, say, 4 acres of wetlands, but you have another area, the lower portion, then as long as you could create 4 additional acres of wetlands down here, you could actually convert this to uplands or drylands, which would allow you to keep this R1 and build single-family homes up there. I'm not sure that's the current regulations. The gentleman from Duffield, I would hope, could address that. But at one time, that was allowed.
That process of getting wetland permitting to fill for houses and roads is a very difficult process. You have to show need, and it isn't a one-to-one mitigation. And I can come up and show you this. This was part of that PowerPoint presentation that I did last year that indicates the mosaic that I'm talking about of wetland features that that extend through this property. I can have that, pass that around. I got another one here. It's quite a bit more than 4 acres of wetlands on this piece. The blue is the wetland areas.
Let's see.
Michelle, do you need this? Oh, okay.
Any other comments or recommendations on this rezoning?
We do have one final comment, Mr. Mayor. One of the, in front of the Planning Commission, related to tax map 319-24, my copy's getting to 2450. As the discussion started, the Planning Commission looked favorably upon that transition to R3. However, when the discussion went to the next parcel, what we call the Crouchy Farm, that westernmost parcel, which contains the critical areas, their primary concern, from my recollection, was the critical areas, which is why we've come back now and changed anything that was in the critical areas to be R2 to reflect that, because we took leaving as R2 and then only changing to R3 that parcel that's outside the critical areas, because we did take that into consideration when the Planning Commission brought it up, and we're hoping that would give us some favorable consideration on the other parcel, because we believe that was their primary concern.
Okay. Gary?
My name is Gary Stork. I live at 100 Lincoln Avenue, in Elkton. I'm also a past commissioner, and I've known these gentlemen for quite a bit. I've dealt with them. When does this thing come to a head? I think, from what I've heard back here tonight, there's nobody on that panel up there can tell me right now from A to Z what has went on with this meeting, because you got a better brain than what I got. The recommendations, can you all tell me what recommendations were made? You're waiting to the end, you're going to make one final recommendation for everything. I'm not being critical, I'm just pointing out what it's like sitting back here. I'm just an average citizen. But most of the people back here are saying the same thing. No speakers over here on this panel. Gene, nobody can really hear you. I complained about that as a commissioner. You can hear your gentleman now. That's definitely as long as you speak into the mic. At the last meeting I was at the planning committee, nobody spoke in the mic. Okay, that's beside the point of Mr. Snyder. Well, the town has an investment with Mr. Snyder going back when, about water, when I sit on that board. My question is to you people is, if you got the okay, how long would it take you to do something? We're sitting there on $300,000 worth of public money, and we haven't drawn a gallon of water off that property. Good question, isn't it? Bruce, do you have any idea when you're going to start? I've been here 12 years now. I've been here 8 for a commissioner. All I hear is more red tape, more changes. I mean, I'm just an average citizen. That's all I am. But I think I have a right to question that. Because that's a large impact. And you know that. Everybody up here does that. Very large impact. Schools, water, that's another thing. Well, I'm here. I thought that we were going to have something on the books in reference to how many times you can approach and how long you can keep rezoning and rezoning and rezoning. Are you going to fool with 5 developers? It's going to take 15 years to get anything started? Do we have enough water? Do we have enough sewer? Sorry, I had to bring those issues up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Did you have it done?
Thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Okay.
Here's one of your papers, sir. Here's one of your papers.
Okay.
There was one other staff recommended change that was missed, and there's an area in Kensington Courts that was originally proposed to be a marina, and it was zoned C1. The development has been built out. The open space has been deeded to the homeowners association, and there's no prospects for a marina to be built. The recommendation is that the C1 zoned area that was proposed for a marina 20-some years ago, that it's rezoned from C1 to R3 to be consistent with the neighborhood zoning.
Okay. All right, yeah.
There was also a few minor corrections to the Elkton zoning ordinance just for consistency for the titles of the different zoning districts. There was a section in the ordinance that wasn't consistent with the maps and the labels for suburban residential, urban residential, central business district, and highway commercial. And we just wanted to make those corrections. They're in your packet on page 5.
Okay. Any other ones, Jeannie, that we need to go over? Once, the other properties, any other properties?
That's it. That completes the individual requests and staff recommended changes. Unless I missed something.
Okay. The other one, the R2s or R3s, what we talked about or not? That's
I read all the planning commission recommendations
Okay.
on the Southfields,
All right.
Southside LLC project.
All right. Any other comments or recommendations?
My name is Willard Bryan. I live at 204 Park Circle in Elkton Heights. This is all new to me, the zoning issues. What prompted me to be here is the RMR property. How does this work? Now, this is part of the comprehensive plan. Is it going to be rubber stamped? I understand it's not going to be voted on tonight, but at some point in time it will be. We'd like to know when, and I'll resort back to the RMR property. We contested the fact that it was going to be rezoned from business industrial to R3. At that time, he would put 72 apartments in there. Now he wants to go to C2, and not knowing the different categories, if you will, of the zoning, we hear that C2 can be office space with apartments over top. How many floors? The property itself, I think, is like 650 feet deep from 213 back, which would accommodate a quite large building. It'd be nice if you don't rubber stamp that particular zoning. I mean, a lot of these zonings, it's recommended by the Planning Commission. I assume that they'll probably be approved and brought into the comprehensive plan. But we have concerns with that one particular property. We like to have some kind of idea of what's going to be put there. Instead of 72 properties, is it going to be 40 rentals or 50 rentals? The same impact will apply. Additional traffic, and that'd be vehicle traffic as well as pedestrian traffic. We just like to know what's going on there before it's just rubber stamped. And I'm not saying you folks do that. I'm just saying, not knowing the process, if it's adopted, does that have to go back in front of the Planning Commission? His rezone change from R3 to C2, does it have to go back to the commission for their approval before it goes to you folks to be adopted as the part of the comprehensive plan?
So we have to go.
If the board requests it, they could send certain things back to the planning commission if they want their recommendation on a result.
Because Mr. Schwab has his rendering or an architectural rendering of what he wants to put there. So therefore, we'd like to know what's going there before, so that we can have input into why we don't want it done.
Well, what thing it can
It
be
doesn't
put in
vary
there.
anything from R3 to R2 if he can put residential, multi-family dwellings in there. We're
Well,
going to end up with the same thing.
But C2 can have auto supplies, food and beverages, convenience stores, delicatessens, department stores, and or shopping centers.
But Ms. Minner said that it could be multi-level. What is multi? Is that 1, 2, 3, 5?
3.
Whatever that could be. Therefore, it would constitute the ability to have many, many apartments in there.
We wouldn't know that until he made determinations to
And that's what I'm asking. I'd rather it not be approved by you folks. To give us, I'm not speaking for the whole development of Elkton Heights and the surrounding area, but I think most of the people would agree with me. We don't want this to happen if it's going to be 50 apartments in there. It's the same impact.
The maximum height in the C2 zone is 40 feet.
That's 4 stories.
The first floor has to be commercial. Has to be
Okay, that's
kept as-
3 stories of a building 50 feet wide and 650 feet long. That's quite a few apartments. So the impact is still there. It may not be 72, but it could be 40, or it could be 50. And we don't want that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments or recommendations? Okay. The Elkton subdivision regulations, is there any comments or comments or recommendations on that, what we've all discussed? Okay. All right, then, Jeannie, you got the recommendations of the Elkton Planning Commission? You already read all of them also.
I read all those
That's
off the
right.
individual requests.
Okay, but the board will consider the Elkton Planning Commission's recommendations as well as your comments and recommendations presented at this public hearing, along with the written requests received by the town. Then finalize the drafts for introduction and adoption. The date for...
There was one particular property that the owner requested is property not be discussed at this meeting because he didn't have anyone here in attendance.
Oh, okay.
If the board wishes, I can describe the request of that property owner and let you know that subsequent to the Planning Commission action on that, that the board, additional information has come in that the board may want to consider now. Am I to bring that property up? Okay.
We need to identify it, though.
All right, I'm going to do that. The Planning Commission had reviewed a variety of properties that were undeveloped in the town, a few actually, that were recently annexed. And had looked at the Tenby Ridge property, which consists of a number of parcels off of Muddy Lane, and it's identified here in this area here. It's recently annexed. It includes this particular parcel, which consists of about 122 acres. The Planning Commission had recommended a change for this property from R3 and RO to R2 because the property was annexed with the intent to build 500 units of senior housing. It appeared that that was not going to happen. The property has not had any activity on it. There were inquiries into the property, and the Planning Commission felt that due to the constraints in the area for sewer capacity and the underpass here where the railroad is, the road constraints of Muddy Lane, that perhaps the property should be downzoned from R3 and RO to R2. Since the Planning Commission recommendation, additional information has come into the Planning Department that the board would want to consider. The property owners were not aware that the Planning Commission was going to consider downzoning their property, and they object to that downzoning. So just for your consideration, additional information on potential development for this site, and the owners do not wish their property to be rezoned. They want to keep the R3 and RO zoning here. Yes.
Okay. Any other properties at all?
That's it.
That's it, okay. All right, then, this public hearing is now closed. As I started to say, that your recommendations presented at this public hearing along with the written request received by the town, and then finalized drafts and introduction and the adoption, date for which will be posted on the town website. Amendments to the Elkton zoning ordinance, inclusive of the Elkton zoning map, will be presented as ordinance 8-2013. Amendments to the Elkton subdivision regulations will be presented as ordinance 9-20-13. Okay, now we go on to our regular business. It's Severn Trent. Ken?
Evening, Mayor, Council. Well, I'm going to make this brief. I just want to say that for the month of June and July, the facilities did very well. We had a lot of rain. We had a lot of high flows at the plant. We did real well though. And I just wanted to really, I sent you all some pictures of the trash that we've been getting in from the detention center. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I brought some with me.
What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Email.
yeah, got the email.
Let me give them to you.
Yeah, you cleared
Yeah, I got those, yeah.
That's it.
You said you're gonna be 1 minute, you're a minute over about
Ken, you hate him. Ken.
This is like standing room over here.
Yeah, I said speak up so the crowd can hear you.
They're real pretty good.
I got a knife for that. Anyway, we've had 2 meetings with the county at the detention center, and they were pretty good meetings. They were very informative. And at both meetings, we showed Terry Moore was there, and Al Wan was there, and the Director of Public Works was there, and some other people. I don't remember what their positions were, but you know, we talked to them about the problem they have. They have a very serious problem that's impacting the Elkton wastewater treatment plant. And we showed them pictures the first meeting, and then they thought that they were dated. That they were old pictures that we had gotten a year ago. And then the second meeting, we showed them pictures that were more recent, that were actually about a week before the second meeting that the Department of Public Works had gotten. And after the second meeting, they wanted to see more pictures. So last week we got these. These are very current. They're last week from these are accumulation of trash that came in the plant for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday of last week. And so I just wanted you to see that. So we sent these pictures to Terry Moore and to all the people that were at that meeting. Now, I just want you to know that it was clear to me that basically we were there to discuss this problem that we have with the trash, and I think it was obvious that, you know, we wanted to see if the county would be interested in participating in the new screen that we've proposed at the Big Elk pump station that would take this trash out of the flow from getting into the rest of the plant. And my impression was that they were, in fact, interested in participating. And I think that at the last meeting, the second meeting, you know, we talked, Terry Moore talked about participating up to, I thought she said 45% of the cost.
What was that?
45%. And so I think, but the other thing was clear to me is that they expect the mayor and council to come up with a percentage of the cost and let them know. They want that. That's what they want. They want something from the mayor and council. So whatever it is, that's what I think it has to be, and that's what's needed. Whatever that percentage is, if any at all, that I think that message has to go to. That's what they're expecting.
Excuse me, Ken, before she even leaves, if she's leaving, is that for some use of our plant?
No.
No.
No. And we made it very clear in the meeting that this problem had nothing to do with any negotiations that they might, or the mayor and council may have in the future, or with the county as far as utilizing capacity of the treatment plant. This is a standalone issue.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, but they chose that opportunity to present that idea.
Oh.
Because they had, you know, really, last year we went to a meeting with them and they talked about this concept of bringing a trunk line down Route 40 for a sewer trunk line and having a pump station located in the vicinity of the Y, in that right there, and then pumping it to the Meadowview wastewater treatment plant, which is all the way up on Fletchwood Road. Well, that's a long way away from Route 40. So they didn't say at the meeting they would like to hook into the Elkton wastewater treatment plant, but they did say, which I thought was interesting, that there were a lot of areas outside of Elkton or that our county that maybe Elkton might want to, I guess, take it into, have it annexed. So, they didn't really come out and say that, but they chose this second meeting with the county, and we discussed this. That was the first thing out of their mouth was this concept, and we made it very clear at the meeting that had nothing to do with this problem. As a matter of fact, I called saying, well, if this is how you're going to negotiate on this, why would the mayor and council even want to consider anything else? But I didn't say that. Yeah, I didn't say that, but I did want to say that. I did say that to Al Wine after the meeting was over, because he came to me and he said, well, what about this thing I hear about Summer Trent giving the town a proposal? And I said, really, Al, I don't know what I said, that is true, but I don't know how the town looks on that proposal or not. I have no feelings one way or the other, but I can tell you that if that's how you want to negotiate, it's the wrong way, my opinion. But anyway.
Well, I did try to go for 50%, and I told Terry that, but she was not expecting 50%. She said I wasn't really expecting 50%, but I think if she said 45%, like you said, but I think they want a real number from us as to what we would expect them to pay, since this is their problem and it's creating a problem for us.
Well, we need to get the proposal or the cost that it would cost to do this, and the deal would be between the county, and the town of Elkton, and whatever we do with you guys is on us.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. So then you have to make sure that whatever numbers we come up with, we make an agreement between them and the town.
Right.
I don't want to beat around with what you guys are working with us for, because that's.
Well, I
that's
sort of said it
thing.
didn't have anything to do with Al. I said that has something to do with this.
It's really a 50-50.
But I'd like to tell you one thing, Mayor. I want to say one thing, okay? And this, we made this very clear in the meeting with the county, and they already knew it. If they were to eliminate this problem on their site, it would cost a lot more than 50% of what has been proposed at the Elkton treatment plant, because they would have to build and construct a whole concrete structure that would house this equipment. So it could be several $1 million in cost to the county if you were to say, well, look, you take care of your problem, we'll take care of our problem. We don't allow trash to be discharged in our system. It's our ordinance. It's part of our pre-treatment regulations. The county has the same regulations that you have. They don't allow dischargers to discharge trash into their system at their plant. That's just the way it is. And so if they were to correct this problem on their site, which they don't want to do, they don't want to go into the wastewater treatment business on their site. They don't want that. It would cost them several $1 million in order to construct that. So this alternative that the town has provided to them is very, very cost effective.
Is there a way that you can really kind of break down their costs, and we could say in black and white, okay, this is going to cost you $1 million versus 50% of $330,000? You understand? I mean, we could somehow show them that, like you said, it's beneficial to them that they cooperate with us and we make a deal.
It was my impression that
I think they want to
realize that.
Yeah,
I think
they know that.
I think to beat around all this, we need to sit down with them and have a meeting face to face with them and determine what we can do as a group between the two of us, because we can go through you all day long and not get anywhere. I'm not saying it
I agree.
in a bad way, but we need to sit down, explain to them that it's a two-way street here, And if we have to, they have to put their own little line in and go in their own way if that's going to keep on causing us a problem. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, let's just get a new number, I guess is what we need, and take 45% of it, and that's
Yeah, I mean,
all you
that's-
gotta do, and give them the number.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand what's not clear. I mean, do we have a number of what it's
We have
gonna
a
cost?
very good number. It's going to be, it's 300,000 to 320,000. It could be cheaper than that, but that's a very conservative number. That includes purchase of the equipment, the engineering, and the installation.
Okay, so, I mean, why don't we just put a proposal together and ask for 50%? I know she said 45, but I mean, I think it's a shared expense, you know. I think it's a 50-50 thing, so, I mean, let's ask for 50%. But
I think if you ask for 50%, you'll get it.
I'm sure they just need, like, you know, proof. They need some numbers. They need, like, actual numbers. They can't just say, okay, we'll do 50% and...
Without really some concrete.
Do you want to do that and propose, have Lewis can type up something to Terry and proposing that, and or do you want to meet with Terry and?
I think you got to consider a couple things here. Ken showed you the picture of the debris. It's against the law
Right.
for anybody to discharge solid matter like that into our system. So they're violating the ordinances of the town. Technically, we could shut them down. But the scary part about it is that debris he's capturing, did you capture it on the plant site?
This is all out of their line coming.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They could screen it. If you're picking that up after they screen it.
Well, see, they have two lines coming from the detention center. They
The
have-
second line?
And then they come together after
I
they're.
think that would come out of the,
This is coming from the second line. This is not coming from their screen
First
line.
line.
they're coming from the 4-inch line. Because there's only another 4-inch line there. Craig looked it up on the thing. That's the commissary area.
This is coming from the commissary area.
That's what I said, the commissary.
The fact is that, they ought to take the vending machines out of there. If I was them, I mean, somebody just must rush up and throw it right in the toilets. I mean, you know, that's the craziest thing I ever heard about. Because I had already sent a letter to the commander of the detention center about eliminating it.
Well, they hadn't eliminated it.
No, we hear you, but going forward, we need to get some
Forward
numbers.
is eliminating that. I mean, you know.
What, I mean, that's,
We have to spend $400,000.
Screen the main
I don't care even to share 50% of it to eliminate what they're discharging, is what I'm saying.
okay, so what you're suggesting is they should be paying for more than 50%.
Well, if that's
Because
it,
it's-
if all the debris is coming from there, but of course Ken knows that there's more debris coming from other parts of Elkton
Right.
than just there.
Right.
People throw stuff in all over
Right.
the place.
Right.
It just seems like it's more intensified coming from the detention center because it's right there, you know what I mean?
Well, is
You
there-
have the actual, most people don't put all their food bumpers in their toilets. I mean, it is, I guess you go back to the cell with your candy bars and chips.
I'm not.
They must not have trash cans.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I guess what I'm asking is, I mean, do you think we should be asking for 60%?
60%, I'm way beyond that.
Okay, well, let's get.
They cause the problem.
You're the first one that came up with 25%.
Let's get some. How can we get some concrete numbers together and send them a proposal so they can?
Well, Kent's already got it. He's got numbers already for the spire lift and the engineering and everything. He already did. He sent the board a proposal. I think the board saw it, right?
Well, don't we-
Can you know how much trash that comes out of that belongs to the detention center? What's the percentage?
But if Ken,
It's 100% coming in.
but if Ken has the numbers and you got all these pictures, and you know when you start sending people material, you got your ammunition right here.
Right.
I mean, you know what else? What else do they desire, need to see? You got everything in black and white.
Right. We need to send a proposal and
Their
ask
lines
for some
coming from the
action.
detention center. They have two lines. They're dedicated.
And you send enough ammunition, people realize they got me by my balls. I got to do something.
So we have access to whatever's in that line. And all the pictures that we had is from material that comes directly from the jail.
Nothing else comes from anywhere else.
Ken,
I'm not saying that.
Ken,
Just put a screen and stop
Yes.
it.
We did
another screen in the other line, and it's before getting into the main
But it's
line.
not, it's,
Ask them to put another screen in. I heard that from an
Yeah.
intelligent person. Put another screen in, to avoid that stuff from coming through our main line, and then maybe that eliminate it.
They could do that, but what I'm saying is, in order for them to do that properly, it would cost them a couple $1 million, because they'd have to dig the line off where they come together.
what would it
See, we
cost
still
us
wouldn't
for
have
the
a problem.
screen right where our line starts?
Well, with the screen that we're proposing, we're gonna set it in right at.
Exactly,
in an
but
existing
what, I
channel.
understand that, but what if we put a screen right where our pipe started?
Well, you gotta have a way to clean it, you just can't put
Still
a
have to
screen
clean it
down,
out.
manhole,
Clean out.
and,
Yeah, and we would blow up, probably.
it'll back up and,
We have guys.
I still say you've got to aggressively challenge them in black and white, written facts. That's going to cut it.
Yeah, put a proposal
Well,
together.
put a proposal together for saying we go 50% and also denote the ordinance of them, what it could cost them by putting this in and what we might do.
Because if this doesn't
No.
work, then you can go to that meeting that Earl and somebody just said, we need to meet with them.
Right, and Mr. Mayor, I'm kind of leaning on the side of our town administrator and the fact that maybe we should be asking for more than 50%. Just because they said 45 doesn't mean that we have to go in that direction, especially when there is it's on their side.
100% that everything that's doing this is coming just from them.
I don't think they're going to pay 100%.
I didn't say 100%.
No, I'm saying, not for what you're saying, I understand, but
they're not, all the material that comes in the treatment plant, I believe their contribution is more than 50%.
Right.
In my opinion, but I can't really quantitatively
Exactly.
prove that.
That's what they asked us, if we could qualify a percentage by what we're getting. But you're saying here, I would think it'd be worth 50%.
Oh, absolutely.
That much, and then
Give something at least,
it's something
you're
to
right.
start with.
That's
See
exactly.
what they say.
I don't
agree.
see this type of trash coming from the rest of the town.
Right.
The other stuff is like just rags that you would normally
and
see.
maybe a picture of the other stuff coming in another way. I don't know.
It's just, this is like
Right. Oh, well.
real obvious, you know.
So you want Lewis to put a
How long has
proposal?
this been going on?
What?
For, I've been here 6 years and.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, 6 years, I mean, it's been going on ever since the detention center's been there.
Maybe it's stuff.
You know, we get a lot of Roman numeral bags, pickle bags, plastic pickle bags, potato chip bags, pretzel bags, cookie bags. I mean, anything that they can sell in a vending machine, we get. But we don't get that from the rest of the town. You know, we get like
We're being redundant now. Let's make a decision.
paper
See what we
rags
do.
and towels, things like
We all
that.
like
you know.
the same thing.
Domestic stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to do that, have Lewis send a letter regarding 50% and denote that what our ordinance states about them discharging stuff in our sewer plant.
Did they get one of these?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, you know, you sent some information again, send them another copy again.
In fact, I
Send them
sent
another
it to
copy
them, too.
again.
Okay.
But was the county executive bringing this before the county commissioners? Because we have a new way of government there. So where did you all end up?
We talked with the county executive.
Executive,
So
right.
this would go to the county executive, she can make the decision.
I did.
To get
On
paid.
her own?
Right? Yep.
What do you suggest, Norman? Because, you know, it could get to the point where this become beyond a legal matter. What do you suggest?
I think that you probably should, I would like to know if, I don't even know if you can determine what percentage of trash you're getting, but if it's more than 50%, you better ask for more than 50%. You better ask for 60% and sell it for 50. But I would go, now Terry can, as I understand, she can, because she's got budgetary.
She's budgeted, right,
And if they have to change the budget, then they have to go in front of the council.
right.
But I think that Public Works has money in their budget to make these type of changes, to pay these kind of bills. Now, could they come up and just pay $300,000, right? You'd send poor old, what's his face on he'd be laying on the ground if they told him that come out of the budget, but they can't afford this, and I think this is what they gotta do, because they gotta either that or they gotta make some changes over there and stop distributing rags and all these bags. You know,
Yeah.
they can do that.
Yeah.
If they wanna do it.
True.
Yeah. So.
What'd you say?
He said make the phone right
We're going to write a letter.
Mayor?
I mean, really, it's you're our attorney, and this is more than just, it's a problem.
There's some numbers that you can anywhere that you can get.
You don't think, we gotta ask.
Yeah.
Oh,
We ask and they come back and say, no.
They can't do that because
Yeah, but see, if you ask for 7 and you only get 50, then you got what you thought. If you had 7, they pay 70, then you get more.
That comes down the road.
It's like going to church, you ask the man to give $100, he give 100. Yes, he's happy, he's gonna give that 20 when he could give more.
What's the percentage, guys? What are you gonna ask for?
Like you're saying.
Charlie just said, when you go to church, I like that. What he just said.
Ask for 60%.
Commissioner Gibbons. It's a church thing, I like that.
Ask for 60%.
Okay.
Okay.
Lewis, ask for 60%.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, you be on your
We're gonna
minute.
come back and try to beat you.
Earl gotta go to bed.
I gotta go work.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're going to
See, I'm getting hurt.
the letter can go to the Superior Court. Won't be for me.
What?
That's 60.
That'd be for me?
You and her. I mean, the.
All right,
I think
that's
it should come
fine.
from Norman.
Well, the board and the mayor and commissioners.
How about Norman?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna tell their legal counsel it's coming, and I'm gonna tell him that I think he ought to probably advise her that this has got to be done, because now
Yeah,
it's
there you
getting
go.
well set.
That's good.
But it's hard.
Right, that's good.
I mean, you've got to pay a lot of money in repairs,
Yep.
you know.
Well, that's another thing I'd like to talk to you about. Can you get your prices down a little bit?
Which one?
Okay, Ken, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Ken.
get some rest.
You can stay.
You wanna stay so we have somebody? I mean,
You can get yourself a cup of coffee.
Okay. Let me call tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow.
See you, Mr. Banner.
he's going to.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, Jim Lewis.
Did that early.
Okay, the next
Thank you,
item I
Kenny.
have is the recommendation of the PCI for Belleville Water Tower project. They're recommending the low bidder in this particular case, K&K Painting of Baltimore, for a total bid price of $419,000. The town has a CDBG grant for $500,000. To get it, we only get 75% of what it's going to cost us to do this project. So actually, the community development administration will see on this project. They're recommending K&K Painting, and I concur. This board needs to approve it.
All right, do I have a motion
And that
to,
has to go to the department list.
You have to check the state, make sure they're not on the debarred list.
Well, the promotion to accept this bid is contingent if they are not on the department list.
is what?
See, the state, if a contractor violates any state rules, or regulations or standards, they have to go, it's a process they go through. But if they don't, are successful, they can be debarred by the state to be a contractor for the state on any state project. Because the state is a conduit for this federal money, if they're debarred from state work, then you can't use that money.
No.
K&K, we'll find out. We'll submit already sent to Jean. She opens her email tomorrow, she'll see it. She'll send it down to DHCD, they'll check it, and if it's on the department, we'll cancel, we won't notify them, and we'll go to the next bidder.
So do you want to make a motion to accept them on that condition?
No, you just
Contingent
make the
to
motion
they're not on the
accept
department.
recommendation of K&K of Baltimore, contingent. that they're not on the
Contingent, that's what I meant.
department.
Right.
All right, do I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, the next thing is the 213 Road Restoration Project. The recommendation is for Harmony Construction of Maryland for a bid of $183,711.35. There were two bidders for that project, Sands Construction of Wilmington and Harmony of Maryland, and also Wilmington. And Harmony's a low bidder, but they meet all the criteria. So we would recommend Harmony Construction for the road restoration project.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Second. All right, discussion, just a point of thing. Some time ago, the residents had requested, and I talked to Lewis about it, checked with you guys, on Moffett Street, they wanted a speed hump. Although the police had not recommended it, the chief always told me, says if you guys still want to do it, that's just our recommendation, but it's up to you guys that you can have it or not have it. But I figure the residents wanted it, and it was brought up again that if we would reconsider it. So, and I also understand we have another one that's being asked for one too, Hollingsworth.
Yeah, Hollingsworth
Avenue? Street?
We haven't, I don't have the
results
of the
back.
survey.
So I didn't know if you guys would want to, these people were asking for it and the majority are wanting it. Do we want to oblige the residents' concerns?
Do we have the survey on Moffett Street? Was it favorable?
Yeah, it was
And the majority wanted it.
majority.
I agree with that,
Recommended
though.
because the traffic, it's only a very small percentage of the traffic, of the overall traffic that uses the street actually exceeds, the majority are under the speed limit. So the driving force is just a few cars, that's why we recommend
I
it.
understand.
Sort of like
But the
100
majority
cars.
wanted it.
Right.
But the majority of the people
You
wanted
spend
it.
money for speed hump, it's 3 out of 100.
Right.
So when you do a survey and the people ask with the results 60-40, well, how come we didn't get it? What we tell them?
We do that. We have a step process, the town has a policy. The first thing we do is if somebody wants a speed hump, then we survey the community and we see if if the majority want it. The second step is to have the police do a safety survey and they set up their method count and all that. Then they come back with a recommendation. That substantiates whether there is or isn't a
So that was
safety
my answer.
issue.
My
With respect
answer
to what
was,
the police say. And then the third step, you have money. Fourth step is with the board approving. We usually go through those steps. The police department in this case didn't recommend it. It's a short street, Moffett Street. My God.
But the police only go through there occasionally, and I can understand their point. But I guess it's different if you're a resident there and you see all the speed and everything else,
Yeah.
absence of the police not being there.
Well, of course, every street in town is that same way. Every street.
Yeah, they run the stop sign.
Every street that has that.
They do.
Oh, man.
But it's up to the board. I mean, it's your money.
That's why I wanted to find out if you,
I'll put it in.
yeah. But just put one.
Sometimes
Speed hump.
then you get one of them when they go
Now,
by.
Osage Street is the.
We'll go get you, bud.
That's the other street in the back.
Yeah, the Osage is the one you're talking about.
Not Moffett.
I'm not, oh, am I, oh,
Not
is
Moffett,
it
I meant.
Well, they'll be able to get some.
Osage, is that the one? That's short.
Was that right?
Foresight lives.
Yeah, is that where he lives? I always thought he lived on Moffett.
We got one on it.
Now, the one that we haven't, I don't think we have results back on. That's Hollywood Street.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
one that goes from
So not
Elkton
far.
Boulevard down where Steve used to live that way towards the
But he
traffic.
lives on Moffett Street.
I'm sorry?
Taking out that light.
Forbes lives on Moffett Street.
He's
You don't know Osage?
Osage Street. Moffett,
But-
that's up there, Moffett, DFW.
We've never done that.
Okay,
It's Osage.
so they wanted one.
Streets that were.
Well, it's only room for
It's
one.
one,
The
right.
regulations call for so much distance between
200 feet,
between
I know.
the intersection and the
Right.
speed hump. So
I just told a guy down the front.
In
the middle.
I just said, oh man, we got a truck.
Like
I said,
Locust
"Yeah,
Lane, there's.
Bumps, but do you want to put one on there?
So what's the board's wishes?
Bumps, but nobody bumps up like that.
it's either a speed bump or get some more radar in down there, because we gotta accommodate citizens somehow.
Yeah, and I'm worried if the police are back there a lot, if that will slow them down on Osage.
You're not gonna see a lot of police at Osage.
No?
It's just a short street, you know, you can't even
Put the
hide.
speed bump down there. Put the speed bump down.
I'm in favor of it.
How much?
Yeah, the majority won.
I'm in favor of the speed bumps, that's what they asked for.
All right, okay, Louis, amend it and put the speed hump in.
Okay. All I need is approval is.
All right, then do we have a motion to accept the road restoration project for $183,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, anything else? I don't have any old business. Do you have anything?
No.
You have an appointment then?
It's old
Oh,
business.
the art committee.
No.
Oh.
Old business, okay. I just have a few things, we'll make it quick here. Historical Review Committee, we have some reappointments. Josh Brown, Mark Clark, and Steve Leonard. So if I can get a motion to accept them for
So
reappointment.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, the other thing is Jeannie has been working on this enterprise zones. We received word that Governor O'Malley announced the renewal and approval of the 2013 State Enterprise Zone. Cecil County's application was approved, and the town of Elkton zone with expansion area was also approved. Good going, Jeannie. The other good news is that from the Department of Housing Development, from Raymond Skinner, the Secretary, on behalf of Governor O'Malley and the Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown, it's my pleasure to inform you that the town of Elkton's request for the 2014 Community Development Block Grant funds have been approved in the amount of $227,000, and we just got the grant today.
For the Raceway.
The Raceway.
And they thought it was a racetrack. If they kept at the state level, they were like, why aren't we funding a racetrack? And we'll have 3 ongoing CDBG grants concurrently, which
Yeah.
they actually want to come up to see me to make sure that I'm going to be able to handle all the grants at once. But I'm almost embarrassed. We keep getting like they're giving us all this money.
They are.
Good.
They are.
Keep it
We're
coming.
playing favorites.
Yeah, enjoy it while it's coming because there's going to be a time it may not be coming.
Right.
That's right.
If our demographics change and we're less than 51% low on income, then I can't do area-wide benefits. So I'm going to ask for everything I can while we still
That's
qualify.
Okay, and the last thing, we got a letter from the State Highway Department, Greg Hosey. Thank you for your letter concerning the pedestrian crossing at Maryland 213 and Howard Street in the town of Elkton. The Maryland State Highway Administration welcomes the opportunity to work with you. SHA traffic staff has initiated a design request for the Office of Traffic and Safety to address the town's concerns. The design will include the reconstruction of the existing signal, pedestrian amenities, a crosswalk on the south leg of Maryland 213, and a right-of-way acquisition. Due to the right-of-way acquisition, the process may take as long as 18 to 24 months before construction activity begins. But should the town be able to assist with the right-of-way acquisition, the project length could be shortened. So they will keep us informed. So at that request for that situation we had down there with a young lady getting hit, they're going to reconstruct it and fix it all up for us. So that's really good.
Now, remember October 2nd, we're having the
State
Right.
Highway
state highway
coming
up
for
here.
Delaware Avenue.
Right.
At Delaware Avenue, we requested an update to the study, the agent was called hydraulic and hydrology study, or hydraulic study.
Something.
And that was sent to the Earl Friedman, who's their bridge guy in Baltimore, so we haven't got a response on that yet.
I know your last thing, Mary Jo, this, you might have heard about this, but I don't know how we're going to, I don't think we have anything that we can do. The State Highway has initiated a new implemented tourism area corridor signing program in Cecil County. Basically what it is that they come up with, they're going to put signs up for any tourism that we want, like something like Elk Landing or what else we
Yeah,
got?
well, you have to, it is the same program from before that was stopped when it was our turn. We had a tourism
That's the same
meeting
thing.
2 weeks ago, and they are going to be putting the signage up. It's the same ruling, you have to be open 20 hours a week to be put on the sign.
We were gonna put it on, we spoke to Maryland Transportation Authority about I-95, and because they're not open.
That's it.
They won't do it. You have to be open. But they did say, and I questioned it, and they're going to question it again. When this came up before, we said, can you leave a space for Elk Landing in case they are open in the near future? And they're going to check on that. But everybody, I did talk to Gene about it too. Everybody could go on. They want each town to go on and put in as much as you want to be on these signs. And so I told Gene I would take care of that, but if anybody can really do it. And they said put whatever you think you want to have, and then let them be the one to say no.
Elkton Alliance.
Well, we're the downtown business district, you would want to put it in, and then, you know, the historical, the museum in historical.
Open all the time, though.
But it's not open 20
Yeah,
hours, I gotta count for hours,
I
but
checked on that
still.
because I thought that might be a destination.
But the Arts Council is there, so they're in the same building.
Yeah, I
So
thought-
we were trying to get,
There was also a consideration if you did audio tours.
Exactly.
Right.
Cell phone tours.
Right.
And if it's like a self-guided tour.
Self-guided.
So if you have a self-guided tour established where people can access the site and do it on their own, then they would consider it.
and tourism is looking to do that too throughout the county, so.
They do have some requirements we have to meet, but I think we probably could try to get around some of them, and then we might be able to make it work.
Yeah.
That's
Scout
it.
Landing is trying to work with the tourism office to get the cell phone tours for Elkton.
Yeah. It will be everywhere. It'll be restaurants, all the historic areas, marinas, everything in Cecil County.
All right, that's all I have. Mary Jo, anything?
I just want to thank Gene for all these grants to the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. It's tremendous. They are looking at us now, and I want to thank the mayor and Commissioner Givens for showing up when the Maryland Department of Housing came. They were very impressed with us, and since then, I know Gene and I have been getting emails and phone calls, and they're just looking for projects. So that's about it, so thank you, Gene.
Let's go home, go to bed.
Yeah, I had a question about the bike route. What happened to the bicycle plans? Because a rider asked me the other day what's going on with that.
I gotta get the meeting together with Will Macco and otherwise, see where our grants are and everything. In fact, I think it was this month or
You're
next
supposed
month.
to let us know.
Is it this month we're supposed to know that we got the grants?
And start the process.
I think it's this month or September to get our grants, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once we know that, then we can really start working towards our goal.
I don't know if you wanted to mention the Sustainable Communities Commission coming to the county. They want you to speak in the mayor's, was it the Sustainable Communities Commission? They want you to do the introduction and.
Myself and,
In September.
yeah, September, end of September. September 23rd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's the county.
Okay. Charlie, anything?
No.
Yeah, I got just two things, I guess. I've been asked quite a few times about Mayor, and if he could help me out with this, I guess. Where we are currently with the train stop or the train station.
Really? Good.
I've been asked about
no,
that.
it's-
Just, you know.
It's coming along. We were supposed to have a meeting this month, but due to some schedule conflicts, we couldn't. So we scheduled again for September
Fifth. I think it's the.
5th? Yeah, I think it was September 5th. Yeah, September 5th, we'll have a meeting, but I think it's coming close because I understand they might have the NEPA study just about completed, which we needed to get done first before we can go forward.
Okay. So if a resident wanted to find out more about it, they can come to that meeting, or what would be their best way to find out like where the town is like currently?
Well, she can come meet with me or Jeannie, and we can give her an update.
Okay.
Or we can attend the meeting.
Okay. They can sit
The
in.
public's not necessarily invited to the meeting, but
Right.
They can sit in. It's just a meeting of a few people.
September 5th.
All right.
10 a.m.
All right, and the second thing is, have we decided as a board how we're going to look at downtown economic development? I know we had a presentation and all that. I know we talked about it, but have we decided how we're going to move forward as far as downtown development and getting businesses there?
That last one of your meetings, you guys recommended us to get an economic development person
No, they said you do not have an economic development and you tasked the Alliance to do that.
or? No, in the minutes I read that they said the town should get their own economic development person.
What, with the Alliance?
Mhm.
Or in our meeting?
Yeah, when I read the minutes, was asking us to get our own at the town.
I don't think that, I think is what it's saying is they don't have one, so we are tasked with that.
And it would be very, very expensive to get that word again.
No, I misread it, that's all. So would you have any plans or anything at all?
We have lots of plans, and I have a big thing I've been working on, but I am not able to say it right at this time. But in the next couple weeks, you will hear.
It's a biggie, isn't it?
It is a biggie.
So that's what we're.
I mean, that's up to you. I mean, if you want to look at Harford County and what they put in economic development, I pulled that before.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not, like I said, I'm not interested in other counties or other areas.
Well, I'm
just kind of looking at here, and I'm trying to be able to give, the residents a answer to a question they've been kind of asking for a long time.
Well,
so I'm just presenting that to the board.
Okay, well, if you'd like to tell the residents that speak to you that they could come talk to the Alliance, because that's what we are supposed to be doing for the town, and I'd be happy to talk to them and show them what we do. And
well, now at the presentation, you said that there's no plan. I mean, specifically, there was no economic development plan. That's what was said there.
we go by the Maryland Main Street guidelines, and that is your plan with economic development. And that's what's working across the country. If you look at National Main Street through the National Trust, and that's why we had all the points to that program speak.
I think probably what you're looking for is a plan to try to revitalize
Is it me?
the town.
What I'm looking for?
Well, I'm saying
I
what you-
think
I'm
we
saying
got a
your
lot
statement.
more to answer to than just Carl Six on his board, as far as what's going on downtown.
Well, I'd like
So
to
is
do
everybody else
taxes.
satisfied? I mean,
Okay,
I'm
if you
good.
want-
Is,
no.
is everybody else satisfied? I mean, with what direction we're going?
I would love to see tax incentives for downtown. I'd like to see a small business loan program for downtown, because we have a huge challenge with dealing with Route 40. And I would love to bring that to the board's attention on what other towns to do to help generate business for their Main Street communities and how they do work with their Main Street people. Because, we could only do so much without the incentives from the town. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, then you probably need to bring that up to a workshop and we all discuss it and see if we can implement something like that. And be something to look at. I
Another
think
question you have to answer tonight before you leave, and I know we're all getting tired, is how are you gonna deal with the zoning? You've had these, you have the input from staff, input from the planning commission, and input from the people who attended the meeting tonight. Now you have to get down to making decisions about what you're going to do. So we can put the final amendments together and present it as an ordinance. Because, if somebody wants this, somebody doesn't want it, you have to make all those decisions. So you need to have a forum to do it, so I don't know if you want to do it at the next workshop or what. You're going to have to sit down and go through it. I mean, you get votes on, what the consensus is at least, because if you don't have a consensus, we can't say, well, this map's going to be changed to this zone. Good example is Schwab. They brought up a good point. I came into C2 with all the apartments above. Put a lot of apartments over there.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly,
Especially on
I think you're going to infuriate the whole Elkton Heights again, because it's just going to have a commercial bottom. He could end up putting a big building in there. Doesn't fill the commercial, but fills the residential. I don't know, maybe it's smarter than I thought. And he said, I know more and more ways to skin the cat. Up to 3 floors of residential apartments in there. And just keep the bottom open for, commercial. And maybe fill half of it, but he still complies with the ordinance.
If his business was a C1, right?
He's CI now.
BI, business industrial.
Okay. So
He's PI now. And he can't put any apartments.
And no residential.
He's all commercial. I'm not commercial, it's industrial.
Mayor doesn't apply, he needs to get on.
and again, based,
I'm sorry.
but can't we just keep it that way?
Yeah,
Keep it that way, but you have to make
but
this.
when we approve this, the actual zoning ordinance and the maps and everything. Can we approve, or should we, I should ask, approve with, say, taking out, for instance, it would be 665 Bridge Street. That being an exception to the approval. Or, well, because did you recommend or deny? Because that's what confused me with this coming up tonight.
Right, but see, that was a new request, it never went to the planning commission.
It never went to the planning commission.
If the board feels they strongly believe the planning commission to weigh in on it, then I assume we can take it back to the planning commission.
And everything would be on hold?
So before it, yeah.
Okay, so we're not on a timeline now. Oh, I know, so that's what I'm saying, because tonight was the public hearing, I guess that should have been my first question. Are we on a timeline for introductory purposes, and no?
You'd be on a timeline if you introduced it, because then it's even before let it die, but if you introduce it, then you have 60 days to adopt it, but right now you haven't even introduced it.
Okay, so we're
You can sit on
good.
this thing for a year if you want. I would recommend it, but you have all the flexibility in the world at this point. But you want to be able to get into a forum here where you're going to go through this, make a decision. The Wawa thing, the way it is. You're going to zone your property commercial, or you're going to leave it the way it is. I mean, there's all
I
kinds of.
agree with the planning commission. I only have a couple exceptions, and I wrote them down, because I didn't know how we were going to proceed tonight. But I took a lot of notes again for the second time.
We also have kind of asked for more information, for reports from the planning department.
Okay.
Any information you need that you feel would help you make your decision on the individual requests.
Tenby Ridge and Bruce are both going to be, big.
And that was my other concern, because the PUD is out of this, but yet we still have to do the zoning on that
I think
property.
he's trying to say, well, if the PUD doesn't pan out, if I can't get that approved, then I'll just go with higher density zoning and just build conventionally with higher density zoning. But what he could do too is take the higher density zoning and calculate it as PUD density too, because once the PUD density is maxed out at the highest level of density for the underlying zoning. So if he increases that underlying zoning to a higher density, that increases the amount of units in the PUD, theoretically he could get in there, although it's pretty tight there now with his design. So, but he said he has no intention of changing his PUD design.
Yeah, all right. So I mean, I was told that we weren't going to vote on this tonight anyway. But so I assumed that we were going to have a workshop on it. So I mean, so
That should be some type of follow-up.
So we can have next month's workshop and just designate it for that, because it's going to just
Yeah.
take us a whole workshop just for that.
Yeah, and if you want to shoot questions as you're thinking them, off to myself or whoever else you think may be able to answer them, and then copy everybody so that when we respond, everyone will be on the same page with the questions, to help you make your decisions. Because there's a lot, for a little town, there's a lot of requests for changes.
a lot of individual, yeah.
But the other thing is if you do it on the September workshop, that will allow the planning commission to hear the ones that they hadn't that Monday for the workshop, wouldn't you? If you have a month, the first Monday after the first meeting, you would have, should you have time?
She's not going to be there.
I don't think I'm on vacation.
She's on vacation, I think.
Yeah, but I mean.
No,
still-
the 11th, I'll be here the 11th. I'm on
You
vacation.
know what I'm saying, they would have, planning commission will have a meeting that night, that night.
Mhm.
Okay, they could hear any, like the Schwab or whatever, anyone that they didn't,
That would entail another public hearing though, which would require an advertising.
Now, this is just to send it back to them. This is just to send it back to them to.
I don't know, it's,
So we'd have to have another public
We have to,
hearing.
there's an advertising requirement for that.
Yeah, I think, well, you just have to
Public
do
notice
it.
that you have to-
You got time, it's only.
I don't think that I'd send it back.
I don't know, you might not have enough time.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd send it back.
So then consider, I guess, an amendment to the.
We can't
The
make
reason I say
that.
that, because if there isn't time to advertise and get it on there, then if you have a meeting on the 11th, you have to leave out these things for making decisions without the recommendation of the planning commission.
Well, there's a lot more on there that needs to be approved other than one. We could leave him out.
Okay.
For the
That's
time
what I'm
being.
saying, with the
We need to get
exception
everybody else.
of.
We'll find one by ourselves.
Excuse me a minute. I'm not so sure it needs to go back to the planning
Oh, it
commission.
doesn't?
You're the final person to make this decision. They're trying, I can't tell you the number of ones I've been through, that they've been changed at the last minute. not here necessarily, but at the county. I'm just saying, they don't have to go back to the planning commission. The planning commission's heard this whole thing, what have you. Now, I'm not so sure, just because you decide to make this something, or C1 instead of whatever, that you need to go back to the planning commission for it.
But aren't there a couple of issues that have not yet been presented to the planning commission?
When it's presented to you, you're the one that makes the decision one way or the other.
I know, but it's always good to have the recommendation from the planning commission based on something that we don't have a recommendation already.
Maybe I do what you can.
If the board wants the recommendation,
You're on
they
the
can do whatever they want
legislative
with that,
group.
but
You're the one that makes the decision.
because they depend on the planning commission to give them a recommendation, because that's
But
what
they
they're
don't
charged
need
with.
that. Okay, so then
But they don't have to, they don't have to do it.
But see, you all also have to understand, we came in here tonight and we heard all of that, and a lot of things you understand, but there's a lot you gotta digest. And when you come back for another meeting, Lois, like you said, there needs to be some kind of ball plan in order for us to follow through and come up with a recommendation, either like the planning commission or not.
Gene, you requested writing down questions. If we were to get questions to you and concerns about what happened tonight, would you be able to email that to the planning commission so you can present them, have some answers for us at the next workshop? Would that work or no?
You don't want to
We
communicate
can't.
them outside the public.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. That open yourself up.
Because if you were an applicant, you would want to know
What they're
what
discussing.
the, so that if
What our
they
decision
were correct
is.
or whatever,
Right.
you would present additional information you could.
I agree with everything you say.
We just have to do like we did tonight. We sit down at a workshop, go down the list, and just talk to each one over and just go yay or nay.
Actually, you have the power.
Personally, I can give you my decision now with a couple of the seconds, so I agree with the planning commission with a couple of things there, so. And I guess everybody else pretty much the same way.
I have the same thing. I have like two that I disagree.
And that can eliminate our time.
Yeah, really, I don't even know
I'll
the
tell you
one,
something else
Bruce
too,
Snyder
if I may
thing.
interject one thing.
with.
RMR property.
They didn't recommend
If
Did you deny that or approve
If they
it?
are
They
an
denied it.
RMR property.
Because he
even
changed
though
it
he's able
after.
to,
Quiet.
even though he's able to
Right.
put
So there was no
apartment or
recommendation.
something over top of commercial build or retail space, and tell me if I'm wrong, Jeannie, he would have to go through a lot of hoops and dances to get through the EPA and the
Oh, yeah.
He has to, yeah, he'd have to.
he's able to
start
put
over.
any kind of living space over there.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to
But
start
he
over
still
with
could.
him, but he still could do it.
But he
And
still
also
could.
gives
Oh,
potential-
yeah, you could put one down in Minefield too if you want
Yeah,
to.
but this
Like,
is off the Elkton Heights.
But as soon as he breaks that slab,
He has
he's gonna
to.
have to go through all that
Hoops,
anyway,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Minute he breaks the slab.
Yeah, the minute he breaks that slab, he's gonna have to go through that
And that could be-
testing and.
That could
And he
be
said, didn't he say they were gonna start the testing once he
Well,
does
that's, yeah,
that?
that, they could determine if, what he could really do with that, what they find on there. That would make a big difference, what they find.
I agree.
Might be in his favor and it may not be, whatever the test is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They recommend that he shouldn't put that there if it contaminated soil.
That's the hub zone, isn't it?
You're gonna have Elkton Heights on you because
It is.
you're making a decision before
What is
anybody
that?
gets involved.
And
Right.
To give
Yeah, he'd be
them the
foolish to
opportunity to
rescind.
put apartments in there. And it may be forever before MDE ever gets
Exactly.
back to you. I mean, that, you might
But
not do
that-
slab, you might not do that for 10 years.
That is in the enterprise zone, so we would be foolish to rezone that into something else, to commercial. The
come on,
residential.
game.
I'm all for keeping it the BI.
One vote. Two votes.
What'd you say?
We can't vote,
In
we
the-
can't vote.
no, we-
Can't vote.
No, but I mean, I think that, I'm just warning
It's
the
in the
Elkton Heights is a-
enterprise zone.
the group to deal
And
with.
we would be foolish to change that.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I thought about
of
that.
all the
See,
advantages,
we'll do
business
it.
and industry that goes in there. So just keep it the
The
same.
Ramadan, you're right.
Need
No, what it is now,
They can build
BI.
everything back there.
All right, anything else?
Wow.
Wait a minute, one thing, Lewis,
It's already zoned in.
There you go.
Lewis,
We got it, we got it.
Sacred tree.
Yeah.
that's a hard tree there. All right, then do we want to, on the September workshop, then strictly discuss these things one by one and then get it down, and then if we get it off our books, we can come up the following week and introduce it, if we get everything squared away.
Discuss it one by one, how? That's what I'm saying. How you want to discuss it one by one? Tell me.
Just go down the list like we did tonight.
And say what?
You approve that particular result, you don't.
Okay, good.
Then we
And
go
that,
right down the
okay,
list.
well, I understand. I agree.
See?
Yeah.
All right, September workshop, nothing but that.
Good.
Anything else?
No, hit it all. Oh,
He heard you do it. Now he wants